Chapter 1959. Jun Changshao was trapped, but it didn't mean that the eternal world was at the mercy of others. There was still a sword practitioner like Jian Guishu. Boom! However, as soon as he appeared and finished speaking, the hot flame came quickly and directly blew him back. The red-haired man gently withdrew his right hand and blew a strand of red hair on his forehead. He said disdainfully, "Don't be so noisy. You're an adult." If Jun Changshao, who was trapped in the holy fire judgment, saw this, he would definitely roar, "Senior sword sage, why can't you even take one move?" There was no other way. The red-haired man was too strong. Freedom. The red-haired man closed his eyes and said, "It's finally coming." Just as he was immersed in his narcissism, the battleships targeting the eternal world opened fire. Dense shells pressed forward with great momentum. There were too many ships. There were also too many shells. The scene was extremely shocking. At this time, if there was an audience present, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. In order to solve the hidden danger, Jun Changshao, the celestial devil emperor, had sent all his forces here. It was no exaggeration to say that, except for his original body, this was almost a decisive battle, and it was even likely to change history. Because if one side lost, it would be a great loss. Especially in the eternal world. If they lost, they would be completely destroyed. The crisis of world extinction hung over the heads of every creature in the eternal world. Their eyes were filled with fear, and they regarded death as life. Guard! The Taishian elder roared. In every city and every formation branch, the members of the formation hall stood resolutely inside. They put their hands on the light curtain and continuously transferred their energy into it. The formation was driven by the origin, and it could also be stabilized by the formation masters. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, the protective formation outside the eternal world began to bear the dense bombardment of shells, and the resulting turbulence distorted the sky of the eternal world. The camera moved to the starry sky, and people could clearly see that the solidified flowing light boundary was constantly flashing. If people had limited imagination, they could imagine that this was a nuclear war, and every place on the planet was experiencing a nuclear explosion. Buzz! Buzz! After a short period of distortion, the sky gradually stabilized. Obviously, it had withstood the first round of bombardment of the Celestial Devil Emperor's army. However, the disciples of the Sect of all times who supported the formation were a little bit painful. Fire! At this moment, the enemy commander gave the order to attack again. Tens of thousands of battleships fired continuously, and the densely packed cannonballs came crashing down one after another, forming a scene like a surging tide. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. The realm-protecting Grand Array had no blind spots to withstand the bombardment. Although there were signs of trembling, there were still no signs of it breaking. It had to be said. The reason why Jun Changshao dared to reveal the eternal world was because of such a powerful formation. Otherwise, he would have been smashed into powder. Continue. The commander-in-chief said with a ferocious expression, "We have to blast it open." The defensive array formation was not in eternal existence. Every time it received an attack, it would definitely consume its internal energy. If 1 or 2 attacks were not enough, then 3 or 4 attacks would be enough. Anyway, since he was here, no matter what the price was, he had to complete the task given to him by the Emperor to destroy this plane. Boom! Boom! The huge eternal world stood in the universe, like a live target, being bombarded from all directions again and again. The surrounding space had long been distorted by the gunfire and smoke. Pooh! After a few rounds of bombardment, some of the members of the array formation hall in the various cities could not bear the backlash and vomited blood. Replace them. The Taishian elder ordered, "Replace them quickly." Swish swish. The injured members were replaced by the healthy ones. They resolutely placed their hands on the flowing light boundary. They were full. So they faced death with equanimity. However, the number of disciples in the Sect of all times was limited. If the other party bombarded without caring about the cost, there would not be enough people to maintain stability. Swish swish swish. At this moment, the warriors of various clans and cities flew over. They stood outside the formation, ready to take over at any time. In these years, they had been cultivating steadily. There were no conflicts or killings. They had endless martial arts resources. So when the plane was in trouble, they would give their lives to help. This scene was a little touching. Li Tianxian took the opportunity to take out his camera and capture it. Swish! Swish! The elders of various clans also flew over. They stood in the sky above the Sect of all times and looked firmly at the shaking realm protecting grand array in the sky. The entire plane was on the move. Although they were not full. If Jun Changshao saw this, he would definitely be gratified. For the Sect and the plane, he had put in too much effort. Now that they were facing a disaster, all the living beings were united. That was the embodiment of cohesion. Boom boom. Boom boom boom. Outside, the shells were still bombarding. One by one, the members of the array formation hall were sent flying. When the rest of the members came in, they were stopped by the warriors of various clans. They said, "Let us do it." They did not want the disciples of the Sect of all times to be injured because they still had to defend the eternal world. They could not go to the battlefield to kill the enemy. They could only do their best to stabilize the formation, even if it meant dying. Let them go. The Taishian elder ordered. The disciples of the Sect of all times retracted their feet and said solemnly, "Please." Okay. The warriors of various clans stepped into the formation without hesitation. They stood in the fixed position of the formation eye and put their hands on the flowing light boundary, giving all their strength. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. The bombardment outside continued without any intention of stopping. Although the boundary protection formation supported by the warriors of various clans and cities was extremely sturdy, there was a gap in strength between them and the disciples of the Sect of all times. Therefore, the consequence of resisting the bombardment was that they were severely injured. Go! Go, go! Batches of warriors were injured. Batches of warriors charged forward dauntlessly. They were not afraid of death. They were afraid of losing their homes. However, the overall strength of these warriors was still a little weak. One after another, people died on the spot due to the backlash. At least tens of thousands of people died in one round. Those who were lucky enough to survive were severely injured. The Taishian elder closed his eyes. He felt pain in his heart. It's obvious that the disciples are stronger than them in the formation. Why did you let them go in and die? Jian Guishu asked, holding his chest. The sudden explosion by the red-haired man had damaged his meridians in many places. Because the Taishian elder said, the disciples of the Sect of all times still have to fight the enemy. Jian Guishu was silent. He understood. First, they used the creatures of the eternal world to support the formation. They did their best to consume the enemy's firepower and preserve the elites of the Sect of all times. Then, they would fight the enemy to the death. It was cruel. But there was nothing they could do. The red-haired man blocked Jun Changshao outside. The disciples of the Sect of all times could not fight their way out. They could only rely on the boundary protection formation to resist for the time being. They could only pray that the enemy did not bring too much gunpowder. But the reality? They were here to destroy the eternal world. They definitely had enough firepower. Boom boom boom. A dense barrage of cannonballs bombarded the area. Although the Great Barrier Formation was able to withstand the bombardment, the space within the formation had already begun to distort. Highest Elder. Shangwan Xinyao sat in the command center. Looking at the image on the light screen, she said solemnly, the consumption of the plane origin energy is accelerating. Even though the creatures of the eternal world were responsible for supporting and stabilizing the formation, the plane origin was providing energy all the time. Therefore, after repeated bombardment, the energy began to decline. The old man of Taishan frowned. He was not a qualified commander and had no combat experience. He could stand up at this moment only because of his understanding of the formation. Highest Elder. When he was at a loss, Yuan Gongzi came over and asked, if the enemy keeps bombarding, can the boundary protection formation withstand it? No. The old man of Taishan said, the origin needs enough time to recover its energy. If the enemy keeps bombarding, even if the formation is not broken, it will stop working due to energy exhaustion. Even, excessive consumption will lead to the collapse of the heaven and earth order, and then it will completely lose its vitality. In that case, Yuan Gongzi said, then remove the boundary protection formation. This, the old man of Taishan hesitated. The boundary protection formation could withstand the bombardment. Once it was removed, it would be like opening the door to the enemy's bombardment. It would explode into a hornet's nest. The patriarch aims to build a fair world. If he knows that countless creatures have died because of the boundary protection formation, he will be very sad. The old man of Taishan was silent. Swoosh! Yuan Gongzi waved his hand and put on his unique school uniform. He hung the golden token on his waist and put his hand on his forehead. His hair turned from messy to slicked back hair. He said seriously, remove the formation. This is an order. Jun Changshao was not here. Someone needed to take charge of the situation. Yuan Feng. He could. Because under the sun, the words Vice Patriarch of the Sect of all times, engraved on the token were particularly bright. Chapter 1960. Jun Changshao was trapped in the sacred fire judgment, and the Sect of all times was basically without a leader. Rows of flowers could lead them in battle, but she had already fused with her husband and couldn't command them. At this moment, Yuan Gongzi stood up and showed his identity token as the deputy patriarch for the first time. That's right. He was the deputy patriarch, not the pro-patriarch. Actually, Jun Changshao had handed this heavy responsibility to him a long time ago. The deputy patriarch's responsibility wasn't light. He didn't have the patriarch's words, but he had to deal with many internal affairs and trivial matters. He could be called the number one nanny of the sect. Fortunately, Yuan Gongzi had been conscientious in his duties all these years, and his performance was impeccable. Of course. After becoming the deputy patriarch, he was stricter on the sect's internal affairs and finances, especially on the Spirit Beast Hall and Z. It had reached a point where it made one's hair stand on end. Don't say that Yuan Gongzi was deliberately bullying others. It was mainly because the beast race and the human race had different styles of doing things. He couldn't let them have their way and had to be strict with them. He had to be diligent and thrifty. Z didn't understand his painstaking efforts and was suppressing anger in his heart. Especially just now, everyone had clearly smashed their bowls. Why was the fault of the Spirit Beast Hall? This was too much. Coincidentally, the patriarch wasn't in the sect at this moment, and everyone was busy observing the trembling realm protection array in the sky. Why not? The Purple King was emboldened. He picked up the brick on the ground and tiptoed over. Huff huff. With every step he took, many years of grievances and suppression uncontrollably surged into his heart. He poured all his strength into the most lethal edge of the brick. 1 step. 10 steps. He was getting closer and closer to Yuan Gongzi. Swish! Z jumped up and stretched the brick in his hand backward. Under the dazzling light, his sinister face was revealed. Dog Yuan Feng. Take a brick from this hall master. To be honest, the Purple King had already thought of the consequences when he made his move. At worst, he would just turn himself in at the commandment hall. He would rather be punished than throw it over. Just how much anger did he have to suppress? Shwa! While Z was jumping up and waving the brick, Yuan Gongzi had coincidentally changed into a new school uniform. His hair was combed back, and he was wearing an eye-catching identity token. He saw it. Especially when he saw the words Vice Patriarch of the Sect of all times. Damn! When did this guy get promoted? He was even the deputy patriarch. The Purple King had lived in the sect of all times for a long time. Naturally, he knew that regardless of whether it was a deputy or a substitute, their position would definitely be higher than his. What to do? Should he smash it or not? Just as the Purple King was caught in a momentary dilemma, Yuan Gongzi seemed to have sensed something. He turned around, looked at the flying Purple King, and asked, "What are you doing?" "Ga." Z instantly froze in midair. His ferocious face relaxed, and he said with a trembling smile, "Nothing." He was terrified. He didn't dare to make a move. "What are you doing with the brick?" Young Master Yuan said suspiciously. The identity medallion hanging on his waist flashed with a bright light. This scared Hall Master Z to death. He hurriedly raised his head and raised the brick high up. He roared in anger, "Fuck them." He was as fierce as he was just now. Now, he was as scared as he was. There was no other way. This guy was the deputy patriarch. If he smashed it over, it would definitely be a big deal. Yuan Gongzi didn't think too much. He said with a serious expression, "You will get what you want soon." "Are you sure?" The Taishian elder asked again. The protection array could help the eternal world resist a lot of damage. Now that it was closed, they could only rely on the power of the sect. "I'm sure," Yuan Gongzi affirmed. To be honest, he was under too much pressure to make this decision. It was undeniable that the protection array could resist damage, but it would continue to cause casualties to the warriors of various clans. If it was broken in the end, or even the order of heaven would collapse, it would be better to give it a try. "Okay." The Taishian elder obeyed the deputy patriarch's order. Patriarch, Yuan Gongzi looked up at the sky and thought to himself, "Did I do the right thing?" Right or wrong was not important. What was important was that the sect of all times needed someone to lead the overall situation and command them to fight for the future. Hall Master Shua. "Here. Get ready for battle." "Yes." "Everyone, get ready for battle." "Yes." In fact, Yuan Gongzi didn't need to give the battle order. When the red-haired man bombarded the protection array, they were ready. Sizzle. On the main peak, Li Qingyang clenched his fists, thunder and lightning lingering in his hands. The thunder caltrip beast sat obediently beside him, its eyes shining. Obviously, it was ready for battle like its master. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were the same. They were fully armed, and their life contract beasts stood beside them. To be exact, the higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times couldn't wait to rush out, instead of watching the warriors of various clans die in order to strengthen the array. From this point alone, Yuan Gongzi was right to close the protection array. It was what everyone wanted. Sigh. He woody jumped down from the tree, shook his shoulders, and said, "This battle must be high profile." He realized the seriousness of the matter. As long as the array was closed, for the sake of the sect and the creatures of the eternal world, they must rush out without hesitation and wipe out all the enemies. Creak. Yixingchen opened and closed the door gently, and walked out quietly. He thought that this would avoid waking Jia Lingyao up, but he didn't know that the woman's voice came from behind him as soon as he walked out of the courtyard. "Be careful." Yixingchen stopped and said without turning around, "Okay. I don't want the child to be fatherless before it's born." Jia Lingyao lowered her head. "Don't worry," Yixingchen said, "I'll come back alive." He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, it would affect his mentality, so he strode out of the courtyard. In this life, he understood the meaning of reincarnation. It was not only love, but also the purest friendship. For the sake of the sect of all times, there was no reason to retreat. On the mountain rock at the end of the courtyard, Xiao Ziji was wiping the flowing light shield. When he saw Yixingchen walk out, he jumped down and said with a smile, "Junior brother, we should be able to kill to our heart's content today." "Okay." Yixingchen also smiled. The two walked side by side to the main peak. One gradually put on Lu Bu's three-piece suit, the other put on a high-tech armor. In a trance. Time seemed to go back to the past, back to the first time they left the sect together to train. Although he didn't want to describe it deliberately and pretentiously, the atmosphere in the sect of all times at this moment was too austere, even a little too depressing. Especially with the underworld background music, it really made people worried about what would happen next. Whoosh! Whoosh! Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others landed on the main peak one after another. The higher-ups and disciples were ready to fight, even to the death. Xi Niao. When everything was ready, the old man Taishen said seriously, cut off the connection between the realm protection formation and the plane origin. Yes. Shangwan Xi Niao raised her hand. After a little hesitation, she pressed the stop button on the flat light screen. Buzz, in an instant, the connection between the plane formation I and the realm protection formation was cut off. The entire eternal world seemed to suddenly lose electricity and fell into temporary darkness. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, the subformations in the major cities failed. The warriors of various clans who were ready to sacrifice themselves were stunned in place. Thank you for your sacrifice, Yuan Gongzi picked up the loudspeaker and said, please leave the rest to us. Kill, Zhongyi drew his sword and roared. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In an instant, countless light spots flew into the sky above the sect of all times. Countless battleships crossed the void, and countless mechas shot out flames. The scene showed made the living beings of the plane excited. Year X of the eternal calendar. Faced with the siege of almost all the forces of the celestial demonic emperor, the sect of all times resolutely chose to take the initiative to attack. It was known in history as the prelude to the new era. Chapter 1961. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Outside the eternal world, the dense cannonballs were still bombarding without any intention of stopping. This kind of crazy bombardment was simply a crazy waste of money. Damn it! The commander-in-chief stood in the cockpit, looking at the flowing light boundary that was still not broken, and roared angrily, what kind of formation is this? He had followed the celestial devil emperor to fight all over the world, and this was the first time he had encountered such a tricky situation. There was another reason for his anger, that was, the cannonballs consumed in such a short time could flatten dozens of planes. General, one of his subordinates said, shall we continue? Boom! Continue. So many cannonballs had been fired, if they stopped, it meant that all their previous efforts would be in vain, so they had to continue firing. General. Just as the battleship entered the temporary filling period, the counselor standing closest to the window was pleasantly surprised, the formation boundary disappeared. Seeing this, the commander-in-chief was overjoyed and said, we finally broke it. Too much thinking. The sudden disappearance of the realm protection formation meant that it had closed from the inside. If they wanted to break it with firepower, they would need to invest more resources. Charge in. The commander-in-chief roared. They would not allow the eternal world to set up the formation again. They had to take advantage of this gap to kill the creatures inside and make up for the cannonballs that had been consumed. Whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, the tens of thousands of battleships gathered around spewed out flames. When they were about to charge, they saw that the plane was gradually filled with light spots. At first, they were scattered, but then they covered a large area. The commander-in-chief frowned slightly. General. One of his subordinates saw the true appearance of the light spots through the light screen and exclaimed, the eternal world warriors are coming out. Humph. The commander-in-chief said coldly, they are courting death. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the junction of the space barrier of the eternal world and the universe, the seniors and disciples led by Gu Zhaoxi flew out with great momentum and a murderous aura. The closure of the realm protection formation meant that the plane was exposed to the enemy, so all they could do was protect the thousands of creatures behind them with their lives. So few people? The commander-in-chief said disdainfully, you overestimate yourself. The Sect of all times could be considered to have mobilized its entire army. Although there were millions of Devil Army soldiers and a large number of Avengers following them, their overall numbers were incomparable to the Sky Demonic Emperor's army. Kill them all. In order to end the battle as soon as possible and complete the mission as soon as possible, the commander-in-chief did not plan to fight them head-on. Instead, he planned to use his superior firepower to suppress them. Caw-caw. Caw-caw-caw. The muzzles of the battleships moved and locked onto the warriors flying out of the eternal world. Dazzling energy gradually gathered and then shot out tiny streamer bullets. They didn't use large cannonballs because they wanted to save money. In fact, using small, fast, and numerous energy bombs to suppress the enemy was a very good method. Swish! 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 The dense stream of bullets fell from the sky like hail. Because the area covered was too wide, it was difficult for the Sect of all time's disciples to dodge. Hide? It didn't exist. Since he had chosen to fight head-on, he would fight to the end. Shield up! Zhongyi roared. The members of the vanguard group took out shields made of special materials and placed them in front of them, forming a rectangular defensive circle. Bang bang! Bang bang bang! After a while, the streamer bullets hit the shields crazily. Although they were powerful, they could not shake the solid defense line. Spread out! Zhongyi spread his hands to both sides. The members of the vanguard group hiding in the rectangular defensive circle raised their shields and flew out. They scattered to the left and right sides against the rain of bullets to attract the enemy's firepower and prevent them from bombarding so intensively. However, they still underestimated the suppressive firepower of the Celestial Demon Emperor's side. As soon as they opened the line of fire, there was another dense stream of bullets. To be exact, no matter how scattered they were, they had to experience the bombardment of rainstorm. Bang bang bang! Bang bang bang! Under the endless bombardment of cannonballs, the members of the vanguard group were forced to retreat and the shields in front of them gradually showed signs of cracking. Boom! Boom! After a while, dozens of shields exploded on the spot. The members of the vanguard group who had lost their protection were immediately exposed to the rain of bullets. We're in trouble. Zhongyi's face changed greatly. At this critical moment, the Diablo fighters rushed over one after another. They placed their huge bodies behind their fellow Sect members and placed their palms in the void, condensing a solid hexagonal defensive barrier. Bang bang bang! Bang bang bang! The rain-like bullets hit the barrier but could not shake it at all. However, it was not a good idea to be a target for the bombardment. So the most important thing now was to rush over. Under the suppression of firepower, the chief mecha operator of the Sect of all times stood up. He controlled the dawn sky and rushed forward like a meteor. Along the way, he either dodged the dense bullets or chose to charge forward. After approaching the battleship, he immediately pulled out the big sword from his back. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. A huge Z-shaped sword mark appeared in the void. Swoosh, the dawn sky did not stop for a moment. Flames spurted out from under his feet as if he had turned into Zhao Zilong and charged into the army alone. Bang bang bang. As soon as he left, dozens of battleships in the Z-shaped area exploded on the spot. All the soldiers of the Celestial Demon Emperor inside died. Swoosh swoosh. The dawn sky's performance was very strong. With its extremely fast speed, it charged into the enemy like a ghost. Without exception, all the battleships exploded and people died. What a pity. He did not kill any enemies on the scoreboard. Otherwise, Jing Ji would definitely be at the top of the list. Blow it up. The commander-in-chief pointed at the dawn sky and roared. Caw caw. The cabins of the battleships nearby opened and the soldiers of the Celestial Demon Emperor poured out like locusts. The dawn sky had charged into the army alone. They would definitely not use firepower to suppress him. After all, it was equivalent to using resources to bombard him. So, they had to use their bayonets. Of course. Only a part of it. At the same time, the other battleships were still suppressing him with firepower to stop the Sect of all times from charging forward. They even deliberately bypassed them and fired at the Eternal World. Destroying the enemy's base camp was definitely the best strategy at the moment. Protect the realm. Shuai, who was in command in the Eternal World, ordered. Tens of thousands of Diablo battleships stuck close to the space barrier and formed a huge defensive barrier. They did not all charge forward to protect the realm behind them. Bang bang bang. Endless cannonballs came from different directions. Although they did not have any effect on the defensive barrier, they did consume energy. After a few more rounds, the barrier would definitely break. There was no chance. Because the higher-ups and core disciples of the Sect of all times had already charged forward. All kinds of superpowers and special effects were unleashed, destroying the Starry Sky battleships. At the same time, the soldiers inside were forced to fly out and fight with their bayonets. All battleships, retreat. The commander-in-chief also realized that if the battleships did not retreat quickly, they would be live targets. So, he ordered them to retreat and mobilize all the troops to suppress the enemy with numbers. Swoosh swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. After a while, the battleships flew away and spat out batches of soldiers of the Celestial Demon Emperor. When they gradually gathered, there were probably tens of millions of them. Among them, there were many powerful generals who gathered all kinds of evil forces and fought with the higher-ups and core disciples of the Sect of all times. The current situation was: the strong fought against the strong, and the weak fought against the weak. The Celestial Demon Emperor's side had an absolute advantage in numbers. Take Yixingchen for example. Just the soldiers alone numbered in the thousands, and there were even a few Fate Realm generals among them. Die! Night Emperor swung his halberd and swept across a large area. Blood and broken limbs floated in space. In terms of killing people, Yixingchen would not show any mercy. In fact, he looked forward to being surrounded by more enemies. This way, he could share the danger with his fellow Sect members. Boom! Boom! Night Emperor turned into a god of war. He poured explosive energy into his halberd and killed the Celestial Demon Emperor's soldiers with tyrannical and cruel methods. Gradually, the enemy's blood dyed his armor red. Whoosh! At this moment, the red-haired man walked out from the sacred flame judgment that bound Jun Changshao. This kid is a bit difficult to deal with. He thought that it would be easy to deal with him after trapping him, but things did not go as smoothly as expected. The red-haired man continued to stabilize the sacred flame judgment. He accidentally found Yixingchen fighting and murmured, "This guy is a bit fierce." He looked at the battle between the Celestial Demon Emperor's army and the disciples of the Sect of all times. Seeing that the situation was not under their control, he shook his head and said, "I'm waiting to regain my freedom. I don't have time to waste." Whoosh! After that, he waved his two fingers casually. Whoosh! In an instant, the scorching energy of flames condensed at the tip of his finger, and it expanded as it spun. When it reached its limit, it shot out with a swish, and then it carried terrifying force as it pressed down towards Yixingchen, who was in the midst of a massacre. The red-haired man meant that he would help the Celestial Demon Emperor's army get rid of the troublesome enemy. His main task was to deal with the green-haired man trapped in the judgment. "I'll deal with the one who dances the most. If you still can't take down the Eternal World, you're really trash," raised by the Celestial Demon Emperor. Whoosh! The flame energy pressed down from the sky. The heat and aura cut the space. Oh no! After killing a Celestial Secret Realm general, Yixingchen smelled a strong sense of danger. He looked up with a pale face. It would have been better if he didn't see it. Once he saw it, his heart sank. The red-haired man seemed to be casually gathering the flame energy, but in fact, it was not weaker than the flame energy he had used to bombard the protective formation. Not to mention Yixingchen, even an upper-class celestial secret realm warrior would not dare to fight against it. Junior brother Yi, dodge quickly. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others who were fighting in the distance roared loudly when they saw this. Dodge! Too naive. The flame energy gathered by the red-haired man was too strong. It even formed a kind of aura that sealed Yixingchen. He could not move at all and could only watch. At the moment of life and death, Night Emperor roared with blue veins bulging. Whoosh! The immortal sound power in his body burst out, trying to break the invisible pressure control. However, he had just comprehended it not long ago, and the amount was too little. It was impossible to shake it. It was really difficult to resist in the face of absolute strength. Junior brother Yi. Li Qingyang and the others were furious, but they could not help because of the distance. No. Even if they could come to help in time, they would also die. It could be said that the red-haired man's strength was very terrifying to be able to fight back and forth with the Sky Devil Emperor. Any target that he locked onto would be in an unbreakable dead end, unless, whoosh. Just as the Night Arch was on the brink of death, Woody flew over from afar. The power of immortal music that erupted from his palms had reached its limit. When he moved at high speed, his entire face was distorted by the wind. However, he tried his best. But there was still a distance between him and Yixingchen. Even if he rushed over, he was not confident that he could protect him. He might even implicate himself. At this moment, Woody did not think so much. He only had one thought in his mind. He had to save Yixingchen with all his strength. Only then could he not let down the Patriarch and the Sect. Reality was cruel. The flame pressed down at a much faster speed. The hot air waves pressed down, destroying the surrounding space with a terrifying force. Woody went crazy. He roared and burned the immortal sound power in his body, but he could only watch the hot force approaching Yixingchen and the figure that appeared in front of him, a figure. He did not see wrong. A person appeared in front of Yixingchen out of thin air. He stood in front of Yixingchen with a thick shield. He seemed to be in a fragile position, facing the pressure of tens of thousands of kilograms. Whoosh! A heavy aura spread and condensed into a majestic body. He suddenly put his palms on the flowing light shield and roared, "I have the strength to pick up mountains and the spirit to conquer the world." The overlord of Western Chu. He recognized Xiao Ziji's heroic soul. Yixingchen stared blankly for a moment before shouting, "Let's go." Xiao Ziji stood in place, holding the flowing light shield with both hands. Because of the continuous explosion of power, the mech armor wrapped around his arms gradually cracked and finally collapsed. Whoosh! The flames were still sinking, just like the prehistoric comet that collided with Earth. When it came into contact with the shield's defensive area, a magnificent energy ripple immediately appeared. Boom! At this moment, the tyrant of Western Chu, Xiang Yu, retracted his hands and punched Yixingchen, sending him flying. Without the support of the heroic soul, his defense was reduced. Yixingchen, who had flown out, saw everything clearly. Xiao Zuiji turned his head and showed the side of his face. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he said, "I am willing to use this broken body to bear the brunt of the lightning for you." No! Night Emperor roared with tears streaming down his face. The scene he saw only lasted for a moment before it was mercilessly covered in flames. Junior brother Xiao. Senior brother Xiao. Jun Changshao, who was sitting cross-legged in the endless sea of flames, suddenly opened his eyes. His mind felt like it was going to explode because he suddenly lost something important. Ding! Sect members, 149999. The sect of all times had been walking the path of elites for the past few years, so there were not many members. They could barely gather 150,000 members, but now, they were one less. The system was silent for a moment, then said with difficulty, "Xiao Ziji has died." Hearing this, little Dodo immediately took out the champagne that he had prepared in chapter 500 and cheered excitedly, Dog's sect finally lost a disciple, and the one who died was a core disciple with the protagonist's life. Great news, ha ha ha. Pooh! Jun Changshao spat out a mouthful of blood. His face became abnormally pale. The anger and killing intent in his body was like a volcanic eruption, crazily stimulating every nerve. His entire body seemed to be completely ignited. Chapter 1962. The red-haired man's strength was too terrifying, so Yi Xingqian was locked onto. There was only one outcome, and that was death. He could not withstand it, and he could not dodge it. However, just when he was in danger, Xiao Ziji suddenly stood in front of him, activating all his energy and strength to form a line of defense. In fact, the distance between the two was very close, and this was due to the tacit understanding they had developed in their early years together. Attack and defense. They complemented each other, and their passions spread everywhere. When Xiao Ziji stood in front of him, Yi Xingqian's strong sense of danger was lifted. This meant that he had broken through the deadlock, and at the same time, it also meant that no one could resist the scorching power of the flames. Bang! Yi Xingqian did not have time to think too much, because heroic soul Xiang Yu had sent him flying with a punch. In the process of escaping from the danger zone, he saw Xiao Ziji being swallowed by the flames with his own eyes. This was the most painful. No! Night Emperor's heart-wrenching roar resounded in the shattered void. I am willing to use this broken body. I will bear the brunt of the lightning for you. This was what Xiao Ziji said before he died. He had said it when he entered the life and death valley in his early years, and he had also put it into action. From the day he focused on body tempering, he defined himself as a meat shield. No matter the situation, no matter how dangerous it was, he would stand in front of his fellow disciples without hesitation. This was the life of a tank in the front row. It had nothing to do with the healer not being able to heal him, but because the enemy was too terrifying, and he was instantly killed. Junior brother Yi. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei roared in pain. The anger in their bodies exploded, and they poured it into their weapons, killing the surrounding demonic emperor soldiers madly. Their relationship with their fellow disciples was deep, and there was no need to explain too much. At this moment, the only thing he could do was to turn his anger into strength, and kill all the enemies to comfort junior brother Ye's soul in heaven. Frost Sky. At this moment, Shueshun Tinglu appeared on the battlefield. She looked up at the sky, her hands spread out naturally, and she muttered something. Cold air that seemed to have come from the frozen hell appeared around her, and it spread across a large area with an unstoppable force. Caw-caw. Caw-caw-caw. In the land covered in frost, the enemy soldiers were all turned into ice sculptures. Die! All of you must die. The Purple King was holding a pair of pink boxing gloves. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and he looked like a professional boxer as he walked in front of the frozen soldiers. Left hook, right hook, horizontal kick, side kick. Bam! 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 The corpse burst apart, blood splattering everywhere. After Xiao Ziji's death, the upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times unleashed their full potential and fought against their enemies in a frenzy. Especially He Wudi. He blamed himself for not being there in time. Hoo-hoo. The power of the celestial music gradually gathered in his fists, and his eyes were filled with an intense killing intent that was rarely seen in his life. In the land of eternal life, He Wudi had always lived very cautiously. He even tried his best to pretend that he was invisible, and the situation of him fighting to the death with his enemies was almost non-existent. Today, for Xiao Ziji, he was willing to become a demon. The entire sect of all times was in an uproar. They all gave up on defense and fought against their enemies with the mentality of either you die or I die. The disciples, who were already very terrifying, had their combat power greatly increased. The red-haired man smiled. Deep feelings for your fellow sect members. However, he shook his head and said, in the face of absolute power, you are as weak as ants. Hoo-hoo. He gently raised 2 fingers, and the scorching flames gathered again. Just as he was about to throw it out, he suddenly stopped and looked at the Sect of All Time's disciple who had been sent flying by the heroic soul with a surprised gaze. Returning to the moment before Xiao Ziji died and everyone was furious. Yi Xingqian was still flying backward, tears rolling down his hideous and painful face, scattering across the universe. Slowly, a huge black hole appeared behind him, and his entire body sank into it. Darkness, silence. Yi Xingqian seemed to have lost his soul, floating alone. After an unknown period of time, light appeared in front of him, dispelling all the darkness. A blue sky and warm sunlight poured down on his body. This was the falling star continent. Yi Xingqian landed lightly on the mountain. There was a red door there, and a plaque hung on the door with the words Iron Bone Sect. The falling star continent was long gone. The Iron Bone Sect was also history. Could Yi Xingqian have returned to the past through the black hole? Junior brother Yi. A familiar voice came from the Iron Bone Sect, and Xiao Ziji walked out with a smile. Although his eyes looked very mature, it was difficult to hide his youthfulness. It seemed that this should be the Sect of All Times' initial stage, which was a few decades ago. Yi Xingqian was stunned at first, and then he was overjoyed. He didn't die. Senior brother Xiao didn't die. Swoosh! At this moment, Xiao Ziji strode out and passed through Yi Xingqian's body. The latter stood there dumbfounded. He tried to raise his hand, but found that his arm was blurry. Was it a dream? The joy on Yi Xingqian's face was soon replaced by pain. He slowly turned around and looked at Xiao Ziji, who was leaving. He could no longer control his emotions, and tears flowed down his cheeks uncontrollably. Junior brother Yi, hurry up. Xiao Ziji stopped in front of the stairs and shouted at the door. Yi Xingqian closed his eyes and recalled the past in his mind. In the end, he came to the conclusion that he should be coming out. As expected. A person walked out of the red door. His skin was wheat-colored, and his eyes were ignored. He looked simple and unadorned. Who was it? Pei Aniu. To be precise, his body was still temporarily controlled by Night Emperor's soul. Yi Xingqian was like air. When he saw Xiao Ziji and his former self go down the mountain one after another, the pain in his heart deepened. What appeared now was the scene of the reincarnated powerhouse and the genius who had turned into a good-for-nothing forming a team for the first time. Although it was a bit long ago, it was something that Night Emperor would never forget. He would never forget the experiences he had with him in the wilderness, as well as Xiao. Suddenly, the scene changed. Yi Xingqian appeared on a high slope. He saw himself sitting on a stone, and also saw Xiao Ziji lying on the ground. If he remembered correctly, this should be the Spirit Spring Mountain. Below the ruins of the Spirit Spring Sect, Jun Changshao, who was still the sect master, was leading his disciples to confront the 3 Wuzong disciples of the Spirit Spring Sect. In the past, he thought that Xiao Ziji was particularly stupid, so he deliberately used the Taishan Sutra to help him hide his aura, so as not to be discovered by the people below. Next. The scene changed again and again. It was all things that had happened in the past. It was all bits and pieces of contact with Xiao Ziji. It was a very warm scene. However, when Yi Xingqian looked at the scenes again and again like a passerby, the pain in his heart became more and more intense. The power that had been sealed in the depths of his soul gradually cracked. Until the memory node returned to just now, when he was suppressed by the power of fire, when Xiao Ziji sacrificed himself to save him, it finally reached the critical point. Yi Xingqian held his head and roared. Pang pang pang. In an instant, the chains that sealed the depths of his soul all broke, and a terrifying aura pervaded his body. The red-haired man, who was preparing to continue killing the disciples of the Sect of All Times, looked over in shock. He saw that the guy who was sent flying had a ferocious expression, and the word king gradually appeared behind him. This is, Feng Wanli and the others saw this and were immediately dumbfounded. What's going on? When Yi Xingqian roared, Gu Zhaoxi's reincarnation spirit completely broke free from his dantian. It could not be stopped at all. Whoosh! Finally, the spirit seed rushed out and flew toward Yi Xingchen. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, two streams of light flew out from the sacred fire judgment. They were the evil spirit and the fire soul spirit. They brushed past the red-haired man's ears. The spirit seeds in Ryu Sinan, Gong Sun Ho, and even Li Qingyang, who were fighting with their enemies, also broke free from their bodies. Whoosh! 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 7 streams of light of different colors flew in front of Yi Xingchen. They represented the evil spirit, the fire soul spirit, the space spirit, the reincarnation spirit, the 5 thunder spirit, the sand spirit, and the space-time spirit that came out of Zhang San's body. Obviously, they were all controlled by the Night King. However, there were still 3 left. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Suddenly, 3 streams of light pierced through the void and then lined up with the other 7 spirit seeds. They continuously rotated clockwise above Yi Xingchen's head. The purgatory spirit, the frost spirit, and the space-time spirit. Feng Wanli could not hide his excitement and said, "The 10 spirits have gathered, the king has returned." Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, the 10 streams of light quickly flew into Yi Xingchen's body, causing him to be shrouded in a terrifying aura. The red-haired man frowned. A strong sense of danger instantly filled his heart. Chapter 1963. When Yi Xingchen could not accept Xiao Ziji's death, the sealed power in the depths of his soul was completely released. It was quite sudden. After the power of the seal broke out, the 10 spirit seeds that once belonged to the Night King all flew out of the body of the current successor and merged into Yi Xingchen's body. In a sense, it could be considered as returning them to their rightful owner. However, if he took away all 10 spirit seeds, what would happen to the others? Especially Jun Changshao, who took 2 spirit seeds and treated Xiaohua and Xiaoxia like his own sons. He had painstakingly raised them, only to find out that they were not his biological children and had even been taken away. This was even sadder than having green hair. Ryu Sinan and the others did not care that the spirit seeds were taken away, because they knew that since they merged into Yi Xingchen's body, their combat power would definitely increase greatly. Not bad. The power was unsealed and merged into the spirit seeds. The power that permeated Yi Xingchen's body had risen to an unimaginable level. So much so that the red-haired man frowned and smelled danger. It was even a sense of crisis. "You killed my fellow sect member." Yi Xingchen lowered his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Unforgivable." His calm words were not angry or murderous, but they made one's hair stand on end. Sometimes, hysterical shouting was not the only way to express one's ruthlessness. The abnormal control of one's tone was even more terrifying. Kill! Kill! The Sky Devil Emperor's army below did not care about Yi Xingchen's outburst. They were still attacking the disciples of the sect of all times, gradually surrounding them with their advantage in numbers. One death was only the beginning. This sect and this plane must be destroyed. Buzz buzz, however, when they leaped onto their horses and charged over, the space around them trembled, and a light that resembled plastic wrap appeared. Yi Xingchen's head was still lowered, but his hands had already spread out. His 10 fingers sank into the depths of space, and then he slowly pulled. The streams of light that had condensed below quickly drew closer, binding the enemy forces in several areas within. Ryu Sinan was stunned. This kind of method of reaching into space and pulling the enemies in different areas was really amazing. Die! Yi Xingchen said in a low voice, which seemed to contain the profound meaning of the law. Boom! 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 All the enemy soldiers bound by the space spirit were killed. With this death, more than 100,000 were lost. Shwa! At this moment, Yi Xingchen turned around and pointed 2 of his fingers at another area. The power of the sand gathered at his fingertips and was rapidly absorbed. Along the way, the sand turned into sharp needles that pressed forward like a torrential rain. Swish. 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 Poochie. 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 The sharp needles made of sand crazily pierced through the celestial devil emperor's soldiers, not only turning them into honeycombs, but also killing hundreds of thousands of them. In the blink of an eye, he was reduced to ashes. Yi Xingqian's strength was simply terrifying. At this rate, the celestial demonic emperor's army would not be enough to kill. Of course. The red-haired man certainly would not let him do whatever he wanted. He immediately gathered flames on his fists and said coldly, "Your opponent is me." At this moment, he was not sure that he could defeat this berserk guy. But in order to destroy the eternal world and regain his freedom, he had to find a way to delay and buy time for the celestial demonic emperor's army. It was a good idea. At present, the disciples of the sect of all times were at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. Although they could still fight bravely, they would gradually decline after a long battle. "Sorry. Your opponent is me." At this moment, a voice came from behind. The red-haired man turned his head in surprise and saw a figure walking out of the sacred flame judgment step by step. He exclaimed, "How did you get out?" With his divine sense, he sealed the area with endless flames. Even if the trapped warriors could resist the flames, they could not break out at all unless they broke out from the inside. However, what was the situation now? The sacred flame judgment was still there and had not been destroyed. The guy trapped in it walked out casually as if he were in his own backyard. More than that. When the figure walked out step by step and gradually became clear and revealed the appearance of Jun Changshao, the surrounding endless sea area seemed to be attracted by some kind of force and crazily rushed into his body. "This guy is absorbing my sacred flame judgment. Oh no!" The red-haired man realized that something was wrong. He immediately wanted to withdraw the flames, but sadly found that the connection had been broken. He was the one who set the fire. But now it was not his anymore. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The hot flames crazily rushed into Jun Changxiao's body and into his dantian. After being refined, his skin gradually turned red and hot. Patriarch. Seeing Jun Changxiao walk out, the disciples felt as if they had found their backbone. But when they thought of Xiao Ziji's death, the joy that had just appeared was replaced by grief. Especially Yi Xingqian. Although he was in a berserk state, his mind and sea of consciousness were very clear. When he saw the patriarch come out, he not only felt grief but also deep guilt. Because of him, senior brother Xiao had died. Whoosh! After a while, the sacred flame judgment was completely absorbed. The red-haired man's expression was extremely ugly. The sense of danger grew stronger, and his state of mind became more and more flustered. On the left was Yi Xingqian, who had transformed into the Night King, and on the right was Jun Changxiao, who was unscathed and absorbing the sea of flames. It was understandable that he was flustered. "Him." Jun Changxiao pointed at the red-haired man and said, "Leave him to me." "Understood." Yi Xingqian turned and flew down. He left Xiao Ziji's murderer to the patriarch. He would be responsible for threatening the plane and the soldiers of the same sect. Die! Whoosh whoosh! Bang bang bang! Yi Xingqian seemed to have turned into the Grim Reaper. Just as he flew over, he used different spirit seeds alternately. Everywhere he passed, the demonic emperor's soldiers were all destroyed. Kill! Kill! Zhong Yi raised his saber and roared. In an instant, the members of the war cavalry hall charged forward. The upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times also channeled all their power into their weapons and tried their best to kill the enemy soldiers. It was as if there would be no one to kill if they were slow. That's right. If they were slow, there really would be no one to kill. This was because Yi Xingqian, who had gone berserk, killed a large number of demonic emperor's soldiers with every move. The most terrifying thing was that in order to end the battle as soon as possible, he turned around and unleashed the power of space, the power of evil, the power of fire, and other powers. A large area behind him seemed to have been hit by a pause button and instantly entered a state of stillness. Snap! Yi Xingqian snapped his fingers lightly. Bang bang bang, in an instant, the million soldiers in the sealed area were shattered into nothingness. Blood and remains gathered together, forming a terrifying slaughterhouse. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others were so shocked that their scalps went numb. This scene of millions of lives being annihilated with every move was simply too terrifying. Killing people like flies. Eyes red from killing. It was difficult to describe Yi Xingqian. At that moment, he was the devil, the incarnation of the Grim Reaper. For Xiao Ziji, even if he had to destroy the entire upper universe, it would not matter. Although Yi Xingqian didn't want to be a couple on purpose, the relationship between Yi Xingqian and Xiao Zuiji was real and undeniable. With a snap of his fingers, millions of his companions were killed. This terrifying lethality directly shocked the demonic emperor's army. At this moment, they hesitated and felt fear. They changed from charging to retreating step by step, and there was only horror in their eyes. Retreat! The commander-in-chief ordered. This existence that could kill creatures as easily as taking something out of his pocket also deeply shocked him. In particular, the red-haired man was held back by Jun Changshao and could not be distracted to deal with the enemy. The only thing he could do was to retreat as soon as possible to avoid more casualties. Retreat? Yi Xingqian sneered. Swish! Spreading out his hands, the space force erupted and quickly spread to the extreme distance, and then turned into a solid flowing light barrier, trapping the fleeing demonic emperor soldiers and the space battleships docked in the distance. You! Yi Xingqian finally raised his head, and his distorted face was like the arrival of the Grim Reaper. Go and be buried with senior brother. No, bang! 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 Under the desperate call, the demonic emperor soldiers trapped in the space were all cut into pieces. Blood splattered and dyed the shrinking space barrier red. Boom! Boom! The space battleships did not escape the fate of destruction. Even as they gradually shrank, they kept colliding, causing a series of big explosions. The commander-in-chief in the main battleship could only face the flames with fear. On this day, in this battle, the demonic emperor's tens of thousands of battleships and millions of soldiers were all killed. The murderer, Yi Xingqian. The red-haired man's eyes slowly focused, and only then could he see clearly that the person standing in front of him was a young man with delicate features. He was standing on a flaming wheel, with a red scarf draped over his shoulders and a flaming spear in his hand. Especially, there was a red lotus pattern engraved on the front of the armor. Just as the readers were guessing who this person was based on his appearance and equipment, the phone screen suddenly shook, and a few words popped out: Santan Haihui Guru, Neza. SSS-ranked heroic soul. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others exclaimed. They had gone to the Heavenly Might's secret realm to train countless times. Although they could not defeat a top-notch heroic soul, it did not stop them from observing the portraits on the wall. Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, Jun Changshao walked out of the area filled with flames in the distance. The flames spreading out from his body turned into lines that were connected to Neza, who was standing in front of the red-haired man with a spear. This meant that, the mythical figure that suddenly appeared should be controlled by him. First, the Monkey King's heroic soul appeared to destroy the heavenly demon emperor's clone. Now, Neza's heroic soul was aiming at the red-haired man with a spear. What did Jun Changshao, who could not enter the Heavenly Might's secret realm, have that made the gods willing to help him? Handsome. The author was more handsome than him. He did not see anyone helping him. Gulp. The red-haired man swallowed his saliva. Although the spear in front of him exploded with flames, his entire body was still covered in cold sweat. At this moment, he felt that death was closer to him than ever. He did not obtain freedom. Was he going to die here? No. He could not accept this. The heroic soul Neza glanced at the tattoo on the red-haired man's chest and said disdainfully, "Are you worthy of using a lotus?" When the Dragon King flooded Shintang Pass, Neza cut his flesh to return to his mother and bones to his father. After he died, perfected Tai used the lotus to reconstruct his body, so this was his symbol. What a coincidence! There was a lotus on the red-haired man's chest. What was even more coincidental was that Neza was also playing with fire. What did this mean? It meant that the third prince would appear from the moment the red-haired man appeared. Just like the hidden corners of the popular mystery web series recently, every episode and frame was full of small details. Tisk, little Dodo disdainfully ridiculed, "How dare this idiotic novel be so fake? Don't you want to be a green lotus?" "Hey!" Neza said calmly, "How do you want him to die?" From his tone, although Jun Changshao had some kind of connection with him, it did not seem like he had absolute control. It was more like an employment relationship. "Torture him to death," Jun Changshao said coldly. "You killed my disciple. Unforgivable." Pucci, as soon as he finished speaking, Neza pierced the red-haired man's left shoulder with his fire-tipped spear. The red-haired man's face instantly turned ferocious. He could tolerate being pierced. What he could not tolerate was the pure flames released by the spear that burned his flesh and blood mercilessly. It hurt. It hurt to the bone marrow. "Pucci." Neza pulled out his spear and pierced it into his right shoulder. Since he was going to torture him to death, he could not die immediately. He had to control the damage to his body and soul just right. "Pucci! Pucci!" The sound of flesh being pierced resounded in the starry sky. The disciples of the sect of all times who heard it felt very comfortable. They even wished that they could stab themselves to comfort their fallen comrade. Eternal World, Stone Statue City. Since she was accidentally saved by Jun Changshao, Gongsun Ruoli had been living in the main city built by her clansmen. She focused on martial arts and rarely appeared in public. She wanted to find the heartless man, but considering her son, she suppressed it for the time being. Jun Changshao had also come to see her father, hoping that she could join the sect of all times to enjoy better martial arts resources, but he was politely rejected. Now Gongsun Ruoli wanted to calm down and lead the Stone Statue clan to a better future. Swoosh! In the secret chamber, Gongsun Ruoli, who was cultivating, suddenly opened her eyes. Because she wanted to comprehend martial arts and was worried that she would be disturbed, the environment was very closed. She did not even feel the bombardment of the eternal world. If so, why did she wake up? Gongsun Ruoli lightly clutched at her chest, a pained expression appearing on her beautiful face. No! Something must have happened. Gongsun Ruoli hurriedly stood up and walked out of the secret chamber. When she saw the distorted sky of the eternal world, she immediately realized that her intuition was right. "Patriarch! Why did you come out?" The clan official was surprised. "What's going on?" Gongsun Ruoli frowned. The official hurriedly told her that the eternal world was attacked by the celestial demonic emperor's army. When he learned that his son and the sect were fighting with the celestial demonic emperor's army outside, he immediately flew out without hesitation. "Kill him." At this time, Jun Changshao, who was in the starry sky, said coldly. The red-haired man had hundreds of holes in his body. It was a horrible sight, so there was no need to torture him. It was better to kill him. "Okay." Neza raised his fire-tipped spear. Whoosh, Pucci. Just as Gongsun Ruoli flew out of the eternal world, the fire-tipped spear with great power accurately pierced the red-haired man's glabella, causing his eyes to gradually lose their luster and his hands to slowly fall down. At this point, the murderer of Xiao Ziji had died at the hands of Jun Changshao. Jun Changshao took revenge. If it had been in the past, such a powerful cultivator might have been sent to the Heaven Origin prison suppressing pagoda to take care of him. Unfortunately, after killing Xiao Zui, he no longer had the chance to do so, because even gods had to die. Chapter 1965. The celestial demonic emperor's army was annihilated. The red-haired man who killed Xiao Ziji was also killed. This represented the prologue battle of the new era. Jun Changshao and his sect of all times won. However, the price was the death of his disciple, Xiao Ziji. Is there any way to go back to the past? Jun Changshao asked in his heart. No. The system answered truthfully. He understood the pain in the host's heart at this moment and the urge to start over. Unfortunately, what had happened could not be changed. Jun Changshao clenched his fists and said, I shouldn't have shown the eternal world. Then Sini wouldn't have died. It's all my fault. The host will have to fight the celestial demonic emperor sooner or later. Sacrifices are inevitable, the system said. It liked to complain about Jun Changshao, but on this occasion, it would try its best to comfort him and ask him not to blame himself too much. Otherwise, it would be very heavy. Right. Jun Changshao said happily. Sini went to find Xing Chen to participate in the universe holy war with him in the future. That is to say, he still has a chance to be resurrected. This, the system thought for a while and said, it makes sense. Store, it must be the store. Jun Changshao said with hope, there's a tool that can resurrect. The system did not say anything. It wanted to say that there were only things you could not think of, but nothing you could not buy. But considering its own power, it did not want to cause trouble for the host. Thinking of the scene that Yi Xingchen had seen and the omnipotent system store, Jun Changshao's depression faded a lot. Phew! He took a deep breath and exhaled happily. The system was here. Hope was here. Hey! Hero Soul Neza picked up the red-haired man's body and said lightly, do you want to cut him into pieces? Jun Changshao wanted to answer, but he suddenly saw Gongsun Ruoli at the end of his vision. He said in surprise, Father, why did you come out? No! Why did his father look dull? Why were tears gathering at the corners of her eyes, and why did she look so pained? Jun Changshao had always been a meticulous person. When he saw Gongsun Ruoli's appearance and the complex emotions on her face, the muscles that had just relaxed tensed up once again. Then, with great difficulty, he shifted his body to the dead red-haired man. It can't be. It can't be. It's over. The system exclaimed, this is serious. The upper echelons and disciples of the sect of all times were dumbfounded. They clearly knew that Gongsun Ruoli had been looking for the heartless man. Now that she was staring at the red-haired man's corpse in a daze, did that mean, thinking about how he had been chased down by the heavenly demon emperor's martial artists, and how the red-haired man was in cahoots with the former, there was no need to guess. Stone hammer. Patriarch's mother. Pooh! Jun Changshao spat out a mouthful of blood as pain appeared in his eyes. If the red-haired man was really the heartless man his father was looking for, wouldn't he be killing his mother to prove his Tao if he killed him? Wouldn't that be committing an unforgivable crime? The system hurriedly comforted her, it's not your fault. How am I going to explain this to father? Jun Changshao roared in his heart. Yes. Without knowing the identity of the red-haired man, he had killed Xiao Ziji, so there was nothing wrong with him killing him. But now that he knew his identity, how was he going to face his father in the future? Even when he killed that guy, his father had seen it. You! Gongsun Ruoli, who had been silent all this time, finally opened her mouth. But with just one word, tears fell from the corners of her eyes uncontrollably. Because of the existence of the stone statue bloodline, Jun Changshao felt like his heart was being pierced by a knife when he saw her cry. Father, I'm sorry. Sigh. At this moment, a sigh was heard. Jun Changshao raised his head slightly and looked at Zhang San, who was also in his field of vision. He put his hands behind his back and slowly turned around, smiling bitterly, you still found me. Everyone in the sect of all times was confused. Gongsun Ruoli bit her lip and flew up until she stopped in front of Zhang San. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and slapped him. The latter did not dodge and allowed the angry and resentful palm to slap his face. "Paw!" It was crisp and loud. "Paw!" Gongsun Ruoli raised her left hand and slapped Zhang San's face cleanly. Her eyes were filled with anger and resentment. "You were indeed hiding from me on purpose. I have my reasons." "Paw!" Another slap to the face. Zhang San did not mind and continued, "Following a person who divulges heavenly secrets, you will be implicated sooner or later, so, paw." Slap to the face x4. "I have to leave." "Paw." Slap to the face x5. Gongsun Ruoli raised her hand again but did not hit him. Her eyes were filled with tears as she said hysterically, "Not only did you abandon me, but you also abandoned your son." "Son?" Zhang San was stunned. He could not even feel the pain on his face. "Paw." Slap to the face x6. When Gongsun Ruoli continued to slap him 7 times, Zhang San grabbed her wrist and said anxiously, "You were pregnant before I left?" He did not even know if she was pregnant. What a scumbag of a father. "That's right," Gongsun Ruoli said hatefully. Zhang San could not control his emotions and asked anxiously, "Where is he? Where is he?" Gongsun Ruoli did not answer. Instead, she shifted her gaze and looked up. "Ga." Zhang San turned his head with difficulty and locked his gaze on Jun Changshao. He said in disbelief, "He is my son. It can't be. It can't be." Jun Changshao hugged his head and howled, "She is my mother." Clang! At this moment, Gongsun Ruoli pulled out her sword and pressed it against Zhang San's neck. She gritted her teeth and said, "Abandoning your husband and son, you deserve to die." "Father," Jun Changshao advised anxiously, "you must calm down." Although he could not accept that Zhang San was the heartless man his father was looking for, the truth was the truth and could not be changed. At this time, he had to prevent this tragedy from happening. "Got it." Jun Changshao hurriedly transmitted his voice. Zhang San turned his head with difficulty and said sadly, "There was once a sincere love in front of me, but I did not cherish it. When I lost it, it was too late to regret it. This is the most painful thing in the world." He finished speaking according to what Jun Changshao had taught him. His tears just happened to fall, and his mood and expression were just right. An old actor. As expected. Hearing Xing Ye's classic lines, Gongsun Ruoli's heart softened. She withdrew her sword and turned to fly back to the eternal world. "Don't just stand there," Jun Changshao urged, "hurry up and chase after her." "Ruoli!" Zhang San hurriedly chased after her and shouted, "Listen to me, listen to me." Watching the two figures fly into the eternal world, Jun Changshao's depression dissipated, and he let out a long sigh of relief. This is a turn of events. The system said, this is the limit. The higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times also let out a sigh of relief. At first, they really thought that the red-haired man was Patriarch's mother, but in the end, it was a feint. Pht! At this moment, Yixingchen, who was standing in the universe, raised his head and spat out blood. The 10 spiritual seeds in his dantian quickly flew out and returned to Jun Changshao and the others. "Oh no! Brother Yi fainted. Hurry, carry him back." Chapter 1966. Gurgle, gurgle. The area composed of lava and flames suddenly boiled, and the surrounding temperature rose a lot. Swoosh! After a while, the lava spurted out and condensed into a human shape. At first, there was only a rough outline, but gradually the facial features were condensed until the sharp face was completely three-dimensional. It was the red-haired man who was stabbed by Neza between the eyebrows and died. He didn't die. Wow! The red-haired man covered his chest and spat out blood, which disappeared into the flames. He said with a ferocious face, "Sure enough, it's not that simple." In fact, when he went to the eternal world, he had guessed that the enemy must be very difficult to deal with. But he never expected it to be so difficult. He had no power to fight back in front of the young man on the fire wheel. And the disciple of the sect of all times who went berserk. Even if he didn't die under the flame spear, he would probably be killed by him. Whoosh! At this moment, a gloomy breath came to his face, and a gloomy voice sounded in his ears, "You failed." The red-haired man knew who it was. He sat down in the lava and said weakly, "Not only did I fail, but also your men." The celestial devil emperor still couldn't see his face clearly, but from his gradually reddening eyes, he should be very angry at this moment. From the way he clenched his fists, it seemed that he was trying to restrain himself. Although the sect of all times had caused him trouble several times before, it only hurt his muscles and bones. But now, his muscles and bones were broken. Who wouldn't be angry? Who wouldn't be angry? The red-haired man naturally felt it. He took a deep breath and shook his head. "I understand why you asked me to do it." The celestial devil emperor was silent. "I barely survived by using the rebirth of filthy fire, but I will suffer from the backfire of the evil fire and will be disabled for a long time. So, I don't want my freedom anymore." "Go find someone else for help," the red-haired man said weakly. "Of course," he said with difficulty, "you can also take the opportunity to kill me. I don't want to kill a good-for-nothing." The celestial devil emperor seemed to suppress his anger and turned to leave the fire territory. But when he was about to disappear, he heard the red-haired man say, "To be honest, these people are not simple." "So what?" "I advise you to give up the delusion of ruling the upper universe." "You're wrong." With his back to him, the celestial devil emperor said, "It's not a delusion, because..." He paused for a moment, then continued in a low voice, "It's about to be realized." There was uncontrollable joy in his voice, which was a stark contrast to the anger he was trying to suppress just now. The red-haired man raised his head in shock and said, "Could it be, who?" So when Jun Changshao and the entire sect of all times questioned the identity of the red-haired man, she shouted at Zhang San and even slapped him hard to force him to become a mother. Why did she do this? Because Gongsun Ruoli did not want Jun Changshao to suffer the pain of killing his mother. To be honest, when she saw the red-haired man killed, she was completely disheartened for a short period of time, especially when the murderer was her son. She had to calm down, she had to calm down. Gongsun Ruoli forcibly suppressed the grief and pain in her heart, and did not want Jun Changshao to bear the crime of killing his mother. She could only let Zhang San cooperate with her to act and dispel her son's suspicions. Zhang San. In the face of such an unexpected situation, his performance was flawless. The words, "old actor," were written on the front. There were flaws in their cooperation. For example, before the heartless man left, her son was already born, but Zhang San said that she was pregnant before he left. This did not add up. But Gongsun Ruoli intentionally let Zhang San say that, so that her son would understand that he had never met his mother, and would be able to accept her better, and not have any doubts. Actually, she worried too much. Jun Changshao would not suspect. Because he was not Gongsun Ruoli's child at all, and had only inherited the bloodline of the Stone Statue clan by chance. He was even afraid of exposing it and making this woman sad, so he had to cooperate fully. He was also an old actor. Did someone say that when Jun Changshao killed his mother, there was no bloodline reaction? Sorry, there wasn't. After all, the bloodline belonged to the Stone Statue clan, not the red-haired man's. Strictly speaking, the two had no blood relations at all. There was another detail that could be seen. The red-haired man also did not sense any bloodline resonance with Jun Changshao. If you insist on arguing, then you must be right. I am definitely wrong. After 2 consecutive feints, she finally understood the truth. However, the most tragic was Zhang San, who had to play along with the sudden wedding. It was really a test of his acting skills. Father, mother. At this time, Jun Changshao flew over. His brows were filled with joy and pain, one representing the reunion of his parents, the other representing the farewell of his master and disciple. Son. Zhang San walked over and patted his shoulder, his eyes filled with love. I didn't expect you to grow up. His acting was perfect. But in his heart, he was howling. June Patriarch. I swear to God. I really didn't mean to take advantage of you. It's okay, it's okay. June Changshao secretly rejoiced. No flaws were seen. Everyone was acting, and their acting skills were online. Chapter 1967. June Changshao had killed the red-haired man. Gongsun Ruoli's feelings were very complicated. First of all, she hated this heartless man for abandoning her and her infant son. But could this hatred really extend to death? For a long time, Gongsun Ruoli had been thinking that if she found that guy one day, she would kill him with her own hands. But when she saw him die, she still felt a heart-wrenching pain. After all, she had once loved him. But the pain was short-lived. After realizing that June Changshao had killed the heartless man, she quickly calmed down and made a decision that she thought was very correct. That was to act as if nothing had happened and let Zhang San pretend to be her mother. That guy is dead. My son still needs to live well. He can't be tortured by ethics. It had to be said that this woman was as meticulous as a needle. When she couldn't control her emotions and when everyone guessed that she was the patriarch's mother, she forcefully reversed the situation. Yes. June Changshao was kept in the dark. He didn't know that the red-haired man who controlled Neza to kill was a heartless man. He only defined him as Xiao Ziji's murderer. So, he deserved to die. Gou Xing didn't feel guilty. But what about Gongsun Ruoli? She knew the truth. Especially when she saw her son kill his mother. How did she feel every time she thought about it? The pain. Gongsun Ruoli chose to bear it alone. She would protect this secret forever. My son. More than anything else. In terms of tradition, Gongsun Ruoli was the mother. She had done what a mother should do. In terms of the stone statue race's tradition, he, as the father, was impeccable. June Changshao could deeply feel it. So he especially cherished this kind of familial relationship. He tried his best to put himself in the role of a son. Medical hall. Sun Bukong walked out and took off his mask. Patriarch, junior brother Yi is fine. He just fainted from exhaustion. Phew. June Changshao let out a long sigh of relief. After confirming that Yi Xingqian was fine, he returned to the main hall and invited Zhang San over. He politely stood up and cupped his hands. Greetings, mother. That, Zhang San said weakly. It's a bit awkward for a man like me to be called mother. This is the custom of my father's tribe. This isn't the stone statue tribe's territory. We can't follow their customs. That makes sense. June Changshao said, then when we are outside, I will address you as father. All right. Father. Hearing these two words, Zhang Sandan felt comfortable, and so did the readers. After all, it was really awkward to hear such a way of addressing one's parents. Xing Chen once saw the future, and he also saw Sinner. Does this mean that there is a possibility of him being resurrected? June Changshao asked. The reunion of his parents was a joyous occasion. However, he had to think of a way to save Xiao Ziji. Even if the hope was only 0.1%, he had to do his best. Otherwise, the blade would be here soon. This, Zhang San was silent for a moment before he said, June. Son, I have something that I don't know if I should say. Father, please speak. Although the future is already set, it may gradually deviate from the established trajectory due to various factors. June Changshao furrowed his brows. Since Yi Xingqian saw the future, and he also saw Xiao Ziji, and now the latter has died, I'm afraid there is only one possibility, and that is. Zhang San didn't dare to continue. The future has been changed. It's very likely. Pht! Jun Changshao couldn't help but vomit blood again. He had placed his hopes on the future that Yixingchen once saw, but now he was told that the trajectory had changed, which was the same as directly cutting off his hopes. If the future is changed, it might not be a bad thing, the system said. What do you mean? Yixingchen leaving the sect probably won't happen again. Jun Changxiao's frown deepened. According to what the system said, Sinner sacrificed himself to the heavens to save Yixingchen, and even helped him change the timeline of the future. There is no other way. The system said, this is a multiple-choice question. Bullshit. Jun Changxiao's eyes were about to split open. Only children make choices. I want to change the future of the stars, and I also want to change Sinner's fate. If the heavens stop me, I will defy the heavens. Defy the heavens again. Does the heavens owe you money? To be honest, at this stage, when it came from Jun Changxiao's mouth, not only did it not feel Chunibu, but it also exuded a sense of hot-bloodedness, causing many readers to instantly return to the time when there was not a trace of change in them. So strong. Zhang San was shocked. Jun Changxiao was communicating with the system telepathically. The rebellious look in his eyes deeply touched him, and he once again firmly believed that this child would do something unprecedented. To revive a person, it was not possible to rely on momentum alone. Therefore, whether or not Xiao Ziji could be revived, as of now, could only depend on the system store. For this, Jun Changxiao hurriedly refreshed it. If it really refreshed, it would definitely be said to be too fake, so he didn't even refresh 10 times. In the past, he was disgusted by the limit of the number of times. Today, he wanted to pick up the chair next to him and smash the system store. As long as Xiao Ziji was not revived, Jun Changxiao would not be able to sleep and eat in peace. The same was true for the disciples of the sect of all times. The battle was over. They should have celebrated, but when they returned to the sect, they could not lift their spirits. Especially the female disciples like Lu Wancher and Yao Menjing, who cried the most. If their tears could be accumulated, they would probably flood the entire Iron Bone Mountain in a few days. Of course. The Xian Turtle clan was also in pain. Chapter 1968. Click Resurrection. Such simple and direct words, such simple and unadorned words. Jun Changxiao was stunned for a moment, then ecstasy appeared on his face. Even his hands trembled at a higher frequency. Just a moment ago, he was still agonizing over how to revive Xiao Ziji, or how long it would take. In the end, an opportunity appeared right in front of him. He cried. Jun Changxiao cried. He cried unbridledly for his disciples' resurrection. Normal. The system said, calm down. Actually, it was quite surprised that the Lingyan Pavilion had a resurrection function. However, it quickly calmed down. After all, this was the system. It was omnipotent and could do whatever it wanted. Heavenly Axiom Order, 6 Paths of Reincarnation. Sorry, it was for stepping on. Since he could be revived, what was he waiting for? Jun Changxiao suppressed the excitement and ecstasy in his heart. He immediately raised his trembling hand and pressed on the words that looked like a dialogue box. Ding! Activating resurrection procedure. Ding! Detecting disciple Xiao Ziji's soul has been injected into the Lingyan Pavilion. All conditions have been met. Are you willing to use the contribution points of other disciples to revive him? Yes, no, Jun Changxiao was stunned. Use the contribution points of other disciples? It's very simple. The system explained, it's to use the contribution points accumulated by Li Qingyang, Yixingchen, and the others over the years to revive Xiao Ziji. Oh. Jun Changxiao pressed yes. He did not ask the other disciples because he believed that they would choose something. To be honest, up until now, Gosheng had never been proud of how strong the sect of all times and its disciples were. He was only proud of how close they were to their fellow disciples. Ding! Ding! After Jun Changshao chose yes, all the disciples who entered the Lingyan pavilion and obtained the special text effect had a selection interface appear in front of them. A mechanical voice said, "Are you willing to use your contribution points to revive Xiao Ziji?" The patriarch gave the questions. They answered the questions. At that moment, no matter what Li Qingyang, Yi Xingchen, and the others were doing, they all chose yes without hesitation. If this multiple-choice question had been even harsher, such as using their own lives in exchange for Xiao Ziji's resurrection, their choice would still be yes. Therefore, it was not unreasonable for Jun Changshao to be arrogant. Ding! All disciples have chosen the same answer. Xiao Ziji's resurrection process has begun. Please wait for a moment. A voice that sounded like the sound of nature rang out beside his ears. Beautiful and wonderful. Buzz! Ink began to appear on the blank scroll from bottom to top. He drew his feet, then his hands, then his body, and finally his head. In the end, Xiao Ziji stood in a horse stance with his shield raised. He looked lifelike and valiant. The redrawn drawing was different from the previous one. There was an additional giant demonic beast next to it. Its hard tortoise shell and the flowing light shield complemented each other. Paw! The shield that represented the special effects of the text was directly engraved on the scroll. In an instant, two streams of light similar to eggshells appeared in front of Jun Changshao. Vigorous vitality was constantly gushing out from the inside. One could clearly see that the embryo was rapidly growing. The embryo turned into an infant, the infant turned into a child, the child turned into a teenager, the teenager turned into a young man, and the young man turned into an adult. This kind of journey that should have taken decades to complete was completed in just a few seconds inside the eggshell. It was really unimaginable. Goodoo, goodoo. The vitality contained in the eggshell was constantly boiling. The adult creature slowly raised its head and lifted its hand to remove the oxygen supply in its mouth. One of its hands touched the edge of the eggshell. Paw! Like a bubble, it burst with a poke. Hua hua! The magical vitality water scattered on the ground. Xiao Ziji stood in front of Jun Changshao with his long hair wet. Because his body was naked, his perfect muscles were clearly visible. Hua! At this time, the other eggshell was also punctured. The black tortoise was completely revealed. It had signed a life contract with its master. They would live and die together and resurrect together. Whoosh! Whoosh! When Xiao Ziji and the life contract beast's physical bodies were completed, two streams of light flew out from the Lingyan pavilion and merged into their consciousness. They were truly injected into their souls. Ding! Resurrection complete. Jun Changshao's mouth raised into a happy smile. When the soul completely took control of the body, Xiao Ziji's eyes regained their luster. He looked down at his hands in shock and said, Didn't I die? I won't allow you to die. Jun Changshao said, No one in the world can take your life. Domineering and arrogant. Patriarch. Xiao Ziji just realized that someone was standing next to him. He subconsciously covered his indescribable place with his hands. His whole face was almost as red as an apple. Jun Changshao threw a set of school uniform and said disapprovingly, It's not like you haven't seen it before. Why are you so shy? Don't misunderstand. Goxing said that he had seen it before because of the bathhouse. After all, he would occasionally go there to take a bath. They would often see each other. Xiao Ziji put on the school uniform rather awkwardly and shyly. Then he scratched his head and said, Patriarch, how did I come back to life? His memory stopped at the time when he helped Yi Xingchen take the damage. It's not important. Jun Changshao said, Hurry up and go comfort your fellow disciples. They are still grieving over there. Yes. Xiao Ziji hurried out. Some people might guess from the description of the resurrection that this was a clone born under the influence of advanced technology. Otherwise, the real Xiao Ziji. Why was he so sure? because this involved another function of the Lingyan Pavilion. That was, after a disciple moved in, their soul could be permanently preserved and then given a chance to resurrect. To put it bluntly, Xiao Ziji's physical body was also cloned or replicated, but the soul that controlled the body was authentic. In a world where the physical body could collapse at any time, as long as the soul still had the original smell and the original formula, it meant that he was still him. There was no change at all. Back Mountain. Feng Shui treasured land. There used to be Gu Zhaoxi's cenotaph here. When he returned, it was demolished. Today, another one was erected. The words, Tomb of Xiao Ziji, a disciple of the sect of all times, were engraved on the tombstone. Woo woo. Woo woo. Lu Wancher and Yao Menjing squatted in front of the brazier, wailing and sending paper money inside. All the disciples were lined up neatly with their heads lowered in grief. The atmosphere was stifling. Why hasn't the photo been sent over yet? Yuan Gongzi anxiously turned around, hoping to see Li Tiantian's figure. In the end, he found a familiar person in his field of vision. His eyes immediately widened. Lu Wancher and Lu Wancher also noticed it. The two looked up with teary eyes. When they saw the person's face clearly, they stood up and screamed, "Ghost!" Junior brother Xiao. Li Qingyang was calmer. After seeing Xiao Ziji's face clearly, he thought of the multiple-choice question that appeared when he was grieving. He suddenly understood and said joyfully, "He's revived." Everyone was overjoyed. They were about to rush over, but they immediately dispelled the thought. Because Yi Xingqian was already standing in front of Xiao Ziji. His eyes were unusually cold as he raised his fist and punched fiercely. Bang! Xiao Ziji flew out beautifully and fell under a huge rock far away. He did not stand up. Instead, he leaned against his body, raised his right leg, and placed his right hand on it. The half of his face that could barely be seen gradually revealed a smile. If you don't have the strength, don't do stupid things. Otherwise, our relationship will end. Yi Xingqian roared. Strength. Xiao Ziji was still leaning against the huge rock. His right hand was still casually placed on his knee. He slowly raised his head and showed a resolute face. He smiled and said, "I have." Ho ho ho. Ho ho ho. A thick divination realm aura instantly filled the back mountain and deeply affected every disciple. It gave them a sense of security as if they were being protected from all sides. On this day, Xiao Ziji revived on the spot. His cultivation had directly reached the divination realm. It was to create an opportunity for him to break through the divination realm. It could be understood as sacrificing oneself for others, and the sublimation of one's soul. Xiao Ziji was guilty of helping others, and he took on the role of a tank. Chapter 1969. In the kitchen of the sect of all times. Dong, dong, dong. Ma Yongning waved his kitchen knife and cut the vegetables on the chopping board into rows. Judging from his technique, he was obviously more skilled. 1 He and 2 He were running back and forth with the cut vegetables. Although they were busy, there was always a bright smile on their faces. Sizzle. The pot was hot and the oil was added. Phew. The sous chef Qian Songbao held the pot with his left hand and set the fire with his right hand. He was focused on cooking and was also very happy. Phew. Lu Wancher on the other stove leaned her hands on the big pot, closed her eyes, and released the fire. She was doing the most professional blind stir-frying. The dining hall was very busy. What was going on? Needless to say, there must be a grand celebration banquet. There were 3 celebrations. First, the celestial demonic emperor's army was wiped out. Second, the patriarch's parents were reunited. Third, Xiao Ziji was resurrected on the spot. Any one of them was a joyous occasion. Therefore, Jun Changshao decided to hold the grandest celebration banquet and invited all the big shots in the eternal world to attend. Swish! Swish! In the huge martial arts practice field of the main peak, 8 tables were arranged. The members of the dining hall came one after another with delicious dishes and intoxicating drinks. Phew! Jian Guishu and the others took a deep breath and exclaimed, "Delicious, so delicious." After 2 hours of preparation, all the wine and dishes were ready. "Sit down," Yuan Gongzi said. All the big shots in the sect of all times and all the big shots in the cities sat down and put their hands on the full wine glasses. Swish! Jun Changshao picked up the wine, raised it over his head, and said seriously, "This glass of wine is for the dead." When the celestial demonic emperor's army attacked the eternal world, many warriors of various clans died to strengthen the formation. He naturally would not forget and would keep it in mind. Iron Bone Mountain. A place with feng shui. It had been transformed into a hero's mound by Li Qingyang. All the dead creatures would be buried here and be worshipped by the world. Sun. After the hero's mound was built, Zhang San came to observe and sighed with emotion. "The place you chose is a place with excellent feng shui. It is also shrouded in the strong feng shui of the sect of all times. The dead who are buried here will definitely be blessed with feng shui after reincarnation and have extraordinary achievements. I can't resurrect the creatures who died for the eternal world like I can resurrect Synergy." Jun Changshao bowed deeply to the row of tombstones in front of him and said, "We can only do our best to fight for a good afterlife for them. War. There would be sacrifices in the end." Chapter 1970. In the study room. Jun Changshao fell into deep thought after returning from the stone statue city. Xiao Ziji's resurrection gave him a bold idea. If he let the disciples in the Lingyan pavilion die and then resurrect them, would he be able to break through to the divine realm? "You're dreaming." The system mocked him mercilessly. How could he use this kind of low-level bug to increase his disciple level? Moreover, there were conditions for resurrection. For example, he needed to combine the contribution points of others. As a matter of fact, all the disciples in the Lingyan pavilion, no matter how many there were before, would be cleared after resurrecting Xiao Ziji. "It's not a big problem," Jun Changshao said, "I can let them continue to accumulate. This resurrection function may only be used once in a lifetime. Don't you think it's a loss to use it just to break through to the divine realm?" The system was speechless. Jun Changshao fell into silence. Indeed. Wasting resurrection times in order to break through to the divine realm was not worth it. Also, the system said again, Xiao Ziji sacrificed himself and broke through to the divine realm after being resurrected. Letting the other disciples die in an abnormal way may not be in line with their own opportunities. I'm afraid they will still be stuck in the same place. Makes sense. Jun Changshao dispelled the idea. Resurrection was too precious and could not be wasted. Then, Jun Changshao leaned on the chair and murmured, "I have to plan for the remaining slots." Since the Lingyan pavilion had a resurrection function, he naturally had to let the other disciples move in as soon as possible. 24 slots. Currently, there were only 9 disciples. They were Lu Qianqian, Yi Xingqian, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, Lu Wanshi, He Wudi, Li Fei, and Shengguan Xinyao. Who should I give it to? Jun Changshao fell into deep thought. There were too many outstanding disciples in the sect. The remaining 15 slots were obviously not enough. In the beginning, it could be measured based on contribution points. But now, any disciple could meet the requirements, so he had to consider more aspects. Tian Qi, Long Xiang, Long Aotian. The 3 of them can stay. Jun Changshao made up his mind and matched his name to the corresponding scroll. Buzz! Buzz! In an instant, images continuously appeared on the 3 blank scrolls. Finally, each of them outlined a lifelike disciple in an absolutely mighty and majestic posture. Tian Qi was indispensable. They were the first batch to enter the sect. Although her recent appearances might not be as good as Jing Ji's, she was still a senior disciple. She had witnessed the growth of the sect, and her own strength was not inferior to Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others. So, she definitely had a place in the sect. Long Xiang. He was one of the best among the second batch of disciples, so he deserved to be admitted. As for Long Outyan, he was once Jun Changxiao's contracted beast. Now that he had become Jun Changxiao's disciple, it was reasonable for him to stay. After the portrait was finished, the characters Loyalty, Spear, and Dragon were printed on it. Zhongyi. Jun Changxiao said, he also deserves a place. This disciple did not enter the sect too early, but every time there was a war-like battle, he would always lead the members of the war cavalry hall to charge at the front and contribute greatly to the sect. Buzz. Zhongyi's portrait was sketched out. It was a classic leaping horse raising blade, as if it was shouting the will to break through the enemy lines. The special effect given was also general. Zhou Hong. Jun Changxiao thought for a moment and said, how can I leave him out? Buzz. Very quickly, a disciple standing in the inner courtyard's martial arts practice field with a sword in his hand gradually outlined. The special effect given was sword. At this point, among the disciples, there were a total of 4 weapons. They were Xiao Ziji's shield, He Wudi's door, Long Xiang's spear, and Zhou Hong's sword. Fuck. The system roared, can a door be considered a weapon? And that girl Meng Ying. Swish. On the 15th scroll, Yao Menjing was gradually sketched out. She sat on a throne made of skeletons, like a high and mighty female demon king. Even the atmosphere was abnormally gloomy, so the special effect given was demon. We already have demon, how can we leave out Buddha? Jun Changxiao waved his hand and chose Du Nan on the 16th scroll. That guy's portrait was a bit interesting. He was holding a broom and sweeping the fallen leaves and dust in the courtyard, very much like the eminent monk in the Sutra Pavilion. As for the special effect, it also corresponded to Buddha. After all, the sect was the only Buddhist cultivator. Even Go Fugui, who swept the floor, could enter the Lingyan Pavilion. Wouldn't Jing Ji, who cleaned the latrines, also have a chance? After all, as the chief mecha master of the sect of all times, he could be considered to have a skill. What a pity. Jun Changxiao did not consider it. Saber cultivator Ma Yongning is qualified to enter, the system said. Not bad. Jun Changxiao agreed and immediately chose this uncle who was always chopping vegetables in the kitchen and could still comprehend a higher level of saber intent. He also received the special effect of saber. Another weapon category was added. From this, it could be seen that those who entered the Lingyan Pavilion did not enter according to the time they entered, but according to their own characteristics. In that case, Chief Mecha Master Jing Ji should enter. Unfortunately, Jun Changxiao still did not consider this disciple. That was very sad. There are still 7 left. Go Sheng's brain was about to explode. He said, who should I let in? Chapter 1971. Most of the disciples stayed in the Lingyan Pavilion, so Jun Changxiao had one less thing on his mind for the time being. Next, it was time to think about how to deal with the celestial demonic emperor. After this battle, Jun Changxiao said with certainty, that guy must have suffered a great loss. It would be better if we could find his hiding place. Don't get carried away. The system said, he might have a killer move. Jun Changxiao agreed. He thought that destroying the celestial demonic emperor's 8-division heavenly dragon was equivalent to getting rid of his right-hand man. But now there was a powerful red-haired man. If it were not for the SSS-level heroic soul and Yi Xingchen's rampage, the eternal world would have been destroyed. Damn it! He clenched his fists and said angrily in his heart, when can I go further and be qualified to compete with these top divine mystery realm experts? Complete the main mission, the system said, maybe you can level up. Jun Changxiao said, is there no other way? No. The system said truthfully. Without the ability to cheat, it was basically impossible to rely on oneself to comprehend a higher level. If I can get the evil skill manual left by the heaven-devouring evil lord, will I have a chance to see the mystery of eternal life? Jun Changshao was lost in thought. He still remembered what Jian Guishu told him. I advise the host not to have such thoughts, the system said. Why? Since it is an evil skill manual, it must be full of evil. If the host cultivates it, he will go mad and become a demon who will harm the world. Jun Changshao was silent. The system said, the host should take the right path. There is no shortcut. Jun Changshao was also very annoyed. The main mission had not been completed, and the epic mission had not appeared. If he relied on time to comprehend, who knew how long he would have to wait? There was a point. Go Sheng wanted to break through faster, not because he was obsessed with strength, but because he wanted to get rid of the celestial demonic emperor as soon as possible in exchange for peace. If he went further, he would have completely fallen out with the villain. If the villain sent more powerful forces to kill him, the sect of all times would be in danger. AI. Jun Changshao sighed and took out the 7 incomplete scrolls. This secret manual created by a martial arts legend was also an opportunity for him to enter a higher level. However, the problem was that after studying it for so long, he still had no clue. It was even more mysterious than the wordless heavenly book. Ah! After studying for most of the night, Jun Changshao hugged his head and roared, what kind of secret is it hiding? In a dark environment. The atmosphere was cold. The celestial demonic emperor's figure gradually appeared. As he raised his hand, several wisps of ghostly fire appeared. The surroundings gradually became clearer, and he realized that this was a relatively sealed area. There was a throne in front of him, and a skeleton was sitting on it. The size of the skeleton was not small. It must have been tall and burly when it was alive. It might have even surpassed the category of human. Every bone had an irregular crack. From this, it could be deduced that he must have been severely injured when he was alive. The celestial demonic emperor stopped and looked at the scarred skeleton. He said in a low voice, when I comprehend the great art of swallowing sky and transforming demon that you left behind, I will inherit the will to rule the universe. The great technique of devouring heaven and transforming demon that he left behind? Could it be, this skeleton was the heaven-devouring evil lord that was killed by the 7 profound sage? However, the celestial demonic emperor stepped forward and said, since I want to inherit the will, I must inherit everything. So, he placed his hand on the shoulder and said, I will use your remains to give me a hand. Paw! The originally fragile skeleton shattered after bearing a little force, turning into dust and falling on the throne. As expected, the celestial demonic emperor was delighted. In fact, he had been thinking about this skeleton for a long time. However, no matter how strong he was, he could not hurt it at all. Until he had a little understanding of the great art of swallowing sky and transforming demon. To be exact, the celestial demonic emperor had comprehended the mental cultivation method to a certain level. It was equivalent to obtaining a key and successfully opening a door. Sorry. He turned his head and then took a deep breath. The ashes flew into his 2 nostrils. After a while, the ashes of the heaven-devouring evil lord were all sucked into the celestial demonic emperor's body. This operation made one's scalp tingle. Whoosh! When the ashes merged with the blood vessels and meridians in his body, the celestial demonic emperor suddenly burst out a majestic demonic chi. The shadow of the ghost fire on the wall began to sway, slowly becoming ferocious and huge. Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Strange laughter resounded in the dark environment. I understand one more thing. The mental cultivation method is just around the corner. In the sect of all times, the disciples were practicing as usual. The old man of Taixien led the members to repair the barrier protection formation that had been bombarded before. After the war, the eternal world entered a relatively stable stage. The calmer it is, the more likely it is that a storm is coming. Jun Changshao often thought about the future. It was a little too much to worry about. This could be considered one of his strengths. In most cases, he would prepare for a rainy day. However, no matter how prepared he was in advance, he was still vulnerable in the face of absolute power. Why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? Rose of Flowers saw that her husband had been worried recently, so she comforted him. Don't you humans often say that there will be a way when the car arrives at the mountain, and the boat will cross the bridge when it arrives? Sigh. Jun Changshao said, I can't eat or sleep in peace if the heavenly devil emperor is not eliminated. Husband, you destroyed his army and killed the powerful red-haired man, which can be considered as a heavy blow. He shouldn't come to trouble us in the short term. Rose of Flowers analyzed. That makes sense. Hearing this, Jun Changshao felt a lot more relieved. Are you hungry? I'll make fried rice for you. I'm not hungry. Jun Changshao said hurriedly. It could be seen that this woman's dark cuisine had a deep psychological shadow. Father-in-law and mother-in-law have reunited. Husband, don't you want to take me to see them? Rose of Flowers said very softly and bitterly, after all, I'm your daughter-in-law. This, Jun Changshao said, okay then. Taking this daughter-in-law to see his parents should make them very happy. Stone Statue City, Main Hall. The old actor Zhang San sat in a chair and looked at Rose of Flowers. He praised, good. Very good. Gongsun Ruoli also had a loving smile on her face. She was very satisfied with this daughter-in-law, especially her ability to help her son deal with the Sect's affairs. However, son, Gongsun Ruoli said seriously, you and Rose have been married for many years. You must work hard. After all, you humans often say that there are 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no children is the worst. Rose of Flowers suddenly blushed. Jun Changshao was also very embarrassed, but gave his mother a reason. Rose and I are too high in realm, and are limited by the heavenly law. It is difficult to have children. Yes. Zhang San agreed, the higher the realm, the higher the restrictions. Difficulties do not mean that there is no chance. The two of you are too engrossed in managing the sect. If you take more time out and work harder in that aspect, the chances of success will naturally be greatly increased. Some words did not seem abrupt when spoken by his mother. Mother. Jun Changshao said, son knows, I'll go back first. Go. Before watching the two leave, Gongsun Ruoli specially reminded, your father and I are waiting to hold our grandchildren. Jun Changshao left even faster. On the way, Rose of Flowers looked at him and asked shyly, husband, what do you think? What do you mean what do I think? Take time out and work harder in that aspect. Jun Changshao heard this and almost stumbled. He shouted, I don't think. I don't. Night. Jun Changshao sat in the study and took out the tattered scrolls again. When he had time, he would study it and it became a habit. However, when he placed the 7 scrolls neatly on the table, a bright light suddenly appeared on the cover. This kind of thing had never happened before. Jun Changshao exclaimed, what's going on? Jian Guishu shook his head and said, we are not fated. Will the patriarch be in danger? Li Qingyang asked worriedly. As expected of the second disciple, he did not forget to care about Gosheng at this time. He Wudi said, there shouldn't be any danger, or... He paused and said with a serious expression, there's a great opportunity. How old? Su Xiaoma asked. It may be related to eternal life. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed and secretly prayed that the patriarch could obtain the opportunity of eternal life. Ha! Suddenly, Su Xiaoma pointed into the distance and said in surprise, what's that? Everyone turned their heads and found that at the end of the dark universe, they could vaguely see another vortex. Although it was not so fancy, it was almost the same size as the vortex in front of them. It's very far. Jian Guishu frowned. The strange vortex seemed to be at the end of their vision, but it must be separated by several galaxies. To be exact. Such a phenomenon could be seen anywhere. That's right. The seven-colored whirlpool that Jun Changshao had entered could still be seen clearly from the opposite end of the whirlpool. It gave people the feeling that it was close at hand. He Woody said in surprise, "There's more than one opportunity. Let's not think about this first." Jian Guishu said with an extremely serious expression, "When the phenomenon rises, it will attract countless experts. We have to protect the surroundings to prevent outsiders from disturbing Jun Patriarch's search for opportunities." That's right. Gu Tianqing agreed and said, "Hurry up and be on guard." Back to the time when Jun Changshao took out the remnant scroll and found the seven-colored light emerging. After absorbing the ashes, the Sky Devil Emperor, who was fusing with his body, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes flickered with a demonic luster, penetrating the secret room, penetrating the darkness, as if to penetrate the universe, and then converging at the end of the sky. This situation was very similar to the formation process of the seven-colored vortex. Could it be, the Sky Devil Emperor said excitedly, the secret of eternal life? Swoosh! He eagerly flew up and merged into the eerie vortex. The Sky Devil Emperor and his subordinates had originally followed, but they were rejected. The situation was exactly the same as He Woody and the others. From this, it could be seen. Whether it was the seven-colored vortex or the eerie vortex, only the summoned Jun Changshao and the Sky Devil Emperor could enter. The others were not qualified at all. Gu Tianqing's judgment was right. The two vortexes appeared from different directions. After seeing it, the experts from various galaxies and planes flew over without hesitation. Natural phenomenon, the birth of a supreme treasure. This was an ironclad rule in fantasy novels. Not to mention that the entire upper universe could clearly see it no matter where it was. Anyone with a brain could guess that the supreme treasure that was about to be born must be of a very high level. Go! Must go! The appearance of the two phenomena made the upper universe completely boil. However, when some of the experts flew toward the seven-colored vortex and were about to reach it, they saw that the area had been surrounded by countless warships. Crack! Crack! The Diablo warships were arranged in an orderly manner. They lifted the super-heavy firearms, pulled the safety bolts, and loaded the bullets. Warships, mechas. They formed the first line of defense. 1,000,000 Devil Army and 1,000,000 Avengers stood behind, wearing excellent equipment and weapons, forming the second line of defense. And the third line of defense. It was made up of the upper echelons and disciples of the Sect of all times. From afar, such a magnificent momentum and such a precise layout could really be described as an iron wall. It was no exaggeration to say that even a fly could not fly in. Even if one was lucky enough to sneak in, they would inevitably be blasted out. Everyone. Yuan Gongzi stood in the cockpit of the Eternal Battleship and shouted through the loudspeaker, "This is the star area under the control of the Eternal World. Without permission, no one is allowed to enter. Otherwise, no mercy." The last three words were very domineering. In order to let the Patriarch obtain the opportunity smoothly, they had to be domineering at this time. All the martial artists stopped, and their expressions changed again and again. It was undeniable that the seven-colored vortex was full of temptation. However, the Sect of all times in front of them was not simple. It was a pity that there was no live broadcast of the invasion of the Sky Demonic Emperor's army. Otherwise, they would not hesitate at this moment and would immediately dispel any thoughts of greed. Unlike the seven-colored vortex, which was heavily guarded by the Sect of all times, the eerie vortex was empty, so the martial artists flying toward it quickly approached. Kill them all. The Sky Demonic Emperor's subordinates would not persuade them kindly. Since they dared to come, they must go to hell. Thus, a fierce battle began. As the saying goes, a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. Although the Sky Demonic Emperor's army was wiped out, there were still some trusted subordinates, and their strength was not bad. When they killed them, they were absolutely cruel and merciless. After a while, corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed like a river. The cruel means intimidated all the martial artists, making them calm down and watch from afar, not daring to rashly take half a step forward. Although many people gathered at the two special vortexes, they could only watch and imagine what was inside. Or perhaps there was a heaven-defying opportunity. In the seven-colored environment, the light was dazzling and gorgeous. Jun Changshao, who flew in from outside, stood in a daze and said, "What is this place?" Buzz! At this moment, the flowing clouds under his feet gradually dispersed, revealing a road paved with some special stone slabs, and it extended infinitely forward. Jun Changshao subconsciously looked along the road and soon found a huge stone door at the end of the slowly dispersing clouds. This scene. He had seen it before. That's right. It was extremely similar to the huge door that appeared in the bronze cauldron. In other words, this might be the road to immortality that the martial artists of the upper universe were pursuing. Ta! Jun Changshao started to move forward, his heart was excited. Along the way, he did not encounter any danger, until he stopped in front of the stone door. Whoosh! A vast aura hit him in the face, making Jun Changshao even more excited, because he felt the purer power of the immortal sound. The door in the bronze cauldron, only the immortal sound entered his ears and could not be opened, then what about this door? Thinking of this, Jun Changshao raised his right hand and placed it on the cold door. Buzz! The moment he touched it, a dense pattern appeared on the surface of the stone door, like some kind of intricate lock mechanism, and his hand was like a key, successfully connecting the links and reaching the conditions to unlock the door. Creak! Suddenly, a gap appeared, and the door moved. Jun Changshao saw this and was wild with joy. The stone door in the bronze cauldron could only be opened by sitting cross-legged next to it, and now it could be opened successfully in the environment of the remnant scroll, which meant that he might really be able to enter the land of immortality. But, if I go in, what about them? Jun Changshao had not reached the realm of no worries, and he still cared about his sect, his family, and the creatures in the eternal world. If I lose everything in exchange for immortality in the future, it's meaningless to me. He suppressed the excitement in his heart and stood still. Are you sure? Don't you want to go in? Suddenly, a vicissitude voice sounded in his ears, which made Jun Changshao's face change, and he said in surprise, "Who is it?" "I'm an old man. 7 profound sage." Whoosh! As the word sage fell, the stone door completely opened. First, there was a flash of bright light, and then a figure gradually condensed. Although the face could not be seen clearly, it emitted a special aura, which could be accurately described with the word terrifying. Jun Changshao seemed to be struck by lightning, standing still in place, dumbfounded. This figure, was it a martial arts legend? Jun Changshao had imagined countless times that one day he would meet 7 profound sage, and he would definitely hug his leg and cry, "Senior, do you need a pendant?" The kind that can act cute and coquettish. Now, however, it came too suddenly, and he was completely unprepared. None of the martial artists standing in front of this door can resist the temptation of immortality, the figure said slowly. You're the first to choose to give up. In that case, do you want to give me a reward? After a brief shock, Jun Changshao returned to his despicable self. What reward do you want? Could it be that the 7 fragments really represented the Dragon Balls, and after collecting them, he could summon 7 profound sage to fulfill his wish? Calm down. Don't choose underpants. Jun Changshao hurriedly held his chin, and after careful consideration, he said, I'm not greedy. I only hope to have the strongest power in the upper universe and bring a sect, no, bring a plane into the land of immortality. The figure said, go to sleep. It can be realized in your dreams. Jun Changshao said, take a step back and let me have the strongest power in the upper universe. I can't fulfill this wish. Go Sheng was speechless. Then what can you do, senior? Bring you into the land of immortality. Myself? That's right. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I refuse. This is the most supreme opportunity in the world. You have to consider it carefully. The figure's words seemed to contain some kind of magical power, and it kept calling out to him from the bottom of his heart. Jun Changshao's originally firm mind gradually wavered. Then, he took a step forward with difficulty and walked toward the shining door. 1 step. 2 steps. Ta! Just as he was about to touch the light and enter, Jun Changshao stopped with a ferocious expression and shouted, I refuse. Whoosh whoosh. The thought that existed in his sea of consciousness dissipated. Jun Changshao hurriedly retreated out of the stone door as if relieved of a heavy burden. He secretly rejoiced. Luckily, I resisted the temptation. Young man. The figure said, your willpower is very strong. Thank you. If you miss this opportunity, you can only rely on yourself to enter the land of immortality. Jun Changshao was silent. If fate wills it, we will meet again. After the figure finished speaking, his body gradually faded and then disappeared without a trace. The huge stone door in front of him closed first, and dense cracks appeared on its surface. Finally, it collapsed into pieces all over the sky. Opportunity. He missed it just like that. To be honest, Jun Changshao was more or less distressed. But when he thought of his sect and his close friends, the regret faded a lot. Puff! At this moment, the sound of vomiting blood was heard. Jun Changshao came back to his senses and looked at the place where the stone door disappeared. He found that there was a dark figure standing on the opposite side, so he exclaimed, Celestial Devil Emperor. That's right. It was Celestial Devil Emperor who came in from another vortex. His trembling hands seemed to be very angry. At last, he roared, Why the hell did you refuse? Jun Changshao turned into a dumbfounded cartoon. Time went back. Jun Changshao walked in from the colorful vortex. Celestial Devil Emperor walked in from the gloomy vortex. One left, one right. The two stopped at the stone door at the same time. If they stuck their heads out, they should be able to find each other. Whoosh! Whoosh! Celestial Devil Emperor stopped in front of the stone door. After feeling the special rhythm, his breathing gradually became rapid. He even had a premonition that he was about to enter the land of eternal life. Sure enough. He touched the stone door with his hand and slowly opened it. A ghost-like figure appeared and asked, Are you willing to enter the land of eternal life? Yes. Celestial Devil Emperor didn't even think about it. His purpose of harming the upper universe was to establish a new era and pry into the mystery of eternal life as a creator. So now that there was a shortcut in front of him, he would definitely agree without hesitation. Wait for the other person to make a choice. If your answer is the same, you can be sent to the land of eternal life. The other person? Celestial Devil Emperor was surprised. Someone else came in. Humph. Did he still have to choose? Of course he agreed. Celestial Devil Emperor was extremely confident that the other person had made the same choice as him. After all, entering the land of eternal life was the dream of the upper universe warriors. Get into position. Waiting to enter the land of eternal life. What a pity. He couldn't unify the upper universe and establish a new era, nor could he destroy the sect of all times with his own hands. In the face of a higher realm, this was nothing. Celestial Devil Emperor comforted himself while waiting quietly. In the end, when he was pushed out, when the stone door closed and shattered. The moment the door shattered, his heart also shattered. In the end, he couldn't bear the blow and spat out blood. When he saw Jun Changshao standing opposite him, he immediately realized that this guy must have chosen to refuse. Absolute. Lazy naming, 2 in 1. Chapter 1974. No name, no surname, known as Seven Profound. 8 words rang out from the screen. Although they sounded plain, they seemed to contain some kind of profound meaning that penetrated deep into one's soul. The celestial demonic emperor was also dumbfounded. 7 Profound? Could it be a martial arts legend in the upper universe? The most dumbfounded was Jun Changshao. Apart from being older, the middle-aged man's face and facial features were very similar to his. It was not wrong to say that they were the same person. He had once fantasized that he might be the 7 Profound Sage. Because he was too lonely and invincible, he chose to reincarnate to regain his lost youth. Now it seemed that he could be sure. I am the 7 Profound Sage, the 7 Profound Sage is me. After a short silence, the system roared, "This is too ridiculous." When Jun Changshao was fantasizing, he would definitely not spare any effort to ridicule him. Now that it was really possible, it was definitely the strongest slap to the face. I, who stood at the peak, was lonely and cold. I had no choice but to reincarnate, hoping to gain pleasure from it. Even. Go Sheng paused and said solemnly, "I created you." Identity revealed. The system's origin revealed. Ness. The system roared, "Even if you are in a hurry to end it, you can't be so far-fetched." 7 Profound? In the screen, the heaven-devouring evil lord said in surprise, "You are the martial arts legend in the upper universe?" The middle-aged man smiled but did not say anything. He gave off a feeling of bathing in the spring breeze. Although he and Jun Changshao looked similar in appearance, he did not have that kind of despicable temperament. On the contrary, he was very mature and steady, even with a hint of an otherworldly expert. If Go Sheng was really the 7 Profound Sage, it was hard to imagine that he would be so serious in his previous life. The birth of a plane is the result of countless years of nurturing under the order of the universe. How can I let you devour it so casually? Kakik. The heaven-devouring evil lord laughed strangely. The survival of the fittest, is the eternal law of heaven and earth. Since I have the ability to eat it, they can only be fish meat. That makes sense. The middle-aged man nodded in agreement. Jun Changshao said speechlessly, "Was there a problem with my 3 views in my previous life?" Bah! The system said helplessly, "You only look like him." Does the host really think that he is the 7 Profound Holy Venerable? Since you agree with my point of view, why stop me? The heaven-devouring evil lord said indifferently. Because, the middle-aged man waved his hand and smiled. In order to abide by the eternal law, I'll be the knife today, and you'll be the fish. The moment he said this, the heaven-devouring evil lord's pupils shrank. A strong sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. Buzz! 7-colored energy gathered between the middle-aged man's fingers and expanded after absorbing the surrounding energy. 7 Profound Sunglow break. Jun Changshao's eyes were filled with shock. Ever since he had mastered the power of celestial music, the power of this martial skill had increased. However, compared to the middle-aged man's casual use of it, it paled in comparison. Be more violent. He wasn't even fit to carry his shoes. Awesome! Jun Changshao couldn't hide the excitement in his heart and said, "I was too awesome in my previous life." Nothing is set in stone yet, can you stop being so narcissistic? The system really couldn't take it anymore. If it had a physical body, it would probably have roared until it vomited blood. Huff! Huff! In the light screen, the middle-aged man was suspended in midair. 7 types of attributes condensed from different angles, forming an energy ball that emitted a frightening aura. Beads of sweat appeared on the forehead of the heaven-devouring evil lord. The sense of foreboding and uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. He understood. This guy wanted to kill him. No! This ancestor had achieved great success and was in the midst of a rising career. How could he die here? Ta! The heaven-devouring evil lord spread his legs and retracted his fists to his waist. He raised his head and roared, "Even if you're a martial arts legend, you can forget about hurting me." As he roared, his body quickly erupted with pitch-black attributes. Those who didn't know better would think that he was a scion. Seeing this, Jun Changshao knew that the two were about to fight. He was invincible in his previous life and the demon who brought disaster to the universe. This battle would definitely shock the world. The Sky Devil Emperor was also watching very seriously. He wasn't looking forward to an exciting battle. He was only looking forward to learning more about mental cultivation techniques from the heaven-devouring evil lord's movements. "If you're an evildoer, I'll give you a chance to turn over a new leaf," the middle-aged man said as he gathered his strength, "but for a demon like you who treats living creatures like grass, there's only death." His tone was calm, but his killing intent was determined. Shameless boasting. The heaven-devouring evil lord crossed his hands, and the pitch-black demonic aura around him became stronger. He roared, "Look at my demonic power, invincible." Caw-caw. Caw-caw. The demonic aura instantly materialized and formed layers of barriers in front of him, quickly constructing layers of defense. The Sky Devil Emperor's eyes were burning. He saw it. He learned it. The scene on the light screen seemed to be from the past. But for him, it was actually a live teaching. He could more directly comprehend the heaven-devouring demon conversion technique. Sigh. The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "Stubborn." Chapter 1975. It was as if the celestial demonic emperor had purposely used a picture to cover his face so that no one could see his original appearance during the live broadcast. Then, with a strange laugh, the picture suddenly disappeared. Regardless of whether it was an accident or intentional, his face was extremely similar to the heaven-devouring evil lord. After Jun Changshao saw it clearly, he immediately wondered if this guy was also a reincarnation like him. Thinking back to the words of the heaven-devouring evil lord before his death, Wu Yu had a deeper understanding of the situation. "I am the seven profound sage. I am the heaven-devouring evil lord." To be able to meet again in this life, were they going to continue their previous fate? Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "The past is the cause, and now is the effect. You and I are destined to fight to the death." Whoosh whoosh. At this time, an aura similar to the heaven-devouring evil lord appeared around the celestial demonic emperor. His face gradually became ferocious and excited. Compared to Jun Changshao, who kept imagining that he was the seven profound sage, the celestial demonic emperor was more realistic. He focused on comprehending the mental cultivation method and finally made great progress. An expert. No one succeeded easily. Except for cheating. Jun Changshao frowned. Based on the current situation, he would definitely be beaten to death. The aura now seemed to be even stronger than before. "The gap between you two is getting bigger and bigger," the system said. "This is not a good sign." Jun Changshao. The celestial demonic emperor raised his hand arrogantly, and a small pitch-black vortex formed. He smiled coldly and said, "Leave this godforsaken place and you will die." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Your strength is already outstanding enough in the upper universe. Why do you have to use bloody means to suppress thousands of living beings?" "You are wrong." The celestial demonic emperor said, "I am not suppressing, I am reforming. I am reforming the unfairness and injustice of this world and establishing a new order." Bah! Jun Changshao spat out a mouthful of phlegm and said, "Don't give yourself a high-sounding reason." "All right." The celestial demonic emperor covered his face and laughed strangely. "To put it bluntly, if I am not here, how can you show that you are a hero?" Jun Changshao was speechless. "If there is black, there is white. If there is good, there is evil. If I represent evil, there will be someone who represents light. This is an eternal law," the celestial devil emperor said. "But black and white, good and evil, who defines them? Define justice." Who defines justice? The human heart. If that's the case, as long as I control people's hearts, it means that I control justice and can define good and evil. The celestial demonic emperor smiled ferociously. People's hearts that are not under my control naturally need to be cleaned up. Jun Changshao was speechless. You're crazy. Kakik. The celestial devil emperor smiled disapprovingly and said, only a fool would be satisfied with the status quo. I am a madman, so I dare to do what the fools don't dare to do. In other words, you think you did the right thing? Right or wrong is not important, because as long as I can successfully create a new era, everything that is wrong will be right. Jun Changshao found it meaningless to continue chatting with him, so he muttered in a low voice, damned staff. Jun Changshao. The celestial devil emperor said proudly, you can be considered a talent. I quite admire you. Why don't you help me accomplish my great cause? Are you recruiting me? Yes. Jun Changshao touched his nose and said with a smile, when I was in the mortal world, someone also recruited me. And then? The celestial devil emperor asked curiously. And then? Jun Changshao shrugged and said, he became my man. Who was he talking about? Yes, he was talking about Yuan Gongzi. In particular, in order to hide from Go Sheng, he ran from the continent to Fishery Province of the East Sea. In the end, they still met. That was really tragic. You mean, if I recruit you, I will eventually become your subordinate? The celestial devil emperor asked. Jun Changshao said, the sect of all times doesn't accept dead people. The celestial devil emperor's eyes gradually became cold. He said, Jun Changshao, you and I will settle the score between us sooner or later. At that time, you and all your family will die without a burial place. Jun Changshao's eyes also became cold when he heard that. It didn't matter how harsh words were, but when it involved his family, he definitely couldn't accept it. Buzz! Suddenly, the space shook. Before Jun Changshao and the celestial devil emperor could react, their bodies quickly faded and then completely disappeared on the spot. In the universe's starry sky, the huge vortexes that originally existed in two directions suddenly stopped. It's gone. Jian Guishu said in surprise. Swish! At this time, Jun Changshao appeared out of thin air in the area where the vortexes disappeared. The patriarch is out. The disciples hurriedly flew over. Before they could ask, they saw the patriarch directly raise his hand and slap them in the face. It was a solid slap on the face, and he could clearly feel the pain. This made Jun Changshao certain that he was no longer in an illusory state. The system complained, can't I touch your face? Must I slap you so hard? Shameless. I like it. There was no way to explain this. Sect of all times. Jian Guishu looked at Jun Changshao with anticipation. It's gone. Gone. Jian Guishu almost fell. He was the only one who entered the strange seven-colored vortex. There might be some kind of opportunity inside, but he only saw the scene of the heaven-devouring evil lord being killed. Are you sure you didn't miss anything? I'm sure. Jun Changshao was also quite frustrated. He had finally unlocked the mystery of the remnant scroll, but in the end, he only knew that he might be the seven profound holy master and that the heaven-devouring evil lord was killed. After that, there was no benefit. On the other hand, the celestial devil emperor seemed to have comprehended something and his strength increased again. Bullshit. The system said, I gave you a chance to enter the land of eternal life, but you chose to reject it. Jun Changshao was silent. It shouldn't be. Jian Guishu rested his chin on his hand. Senior. Jun Changshao said seriously, I met the celestial devil emperor inside. This person might be the reincarnation of the heaven-devouring evil lord. Ah! Jian Guishu was stunned. Many rumors said that the celestial devil emperor was the descendant of that demon. If he was the reincarnation, the problem would be serious. As for me, Jun Changshao paused and said, I might be the reincarnation of a martial arts legend. In all honesty, Gou Sheng was very serious when he said this. However, when Jian Guishu heard this, he was stunned for a few seconds. Then he sat on the chair and covered his laughter with his hand. He had undergone professional training. Unless he could not help it, he would never laugh. I'm serious. Jun Changshao shook his head and left the hall. As soon as he walked out, he heard Jian Guishu's unbridled laughter. Sigh. He sighed, looked up at the sky, and said, I killed the heaven-devouring evil lord in my previous life. In this life, I must kill the celestial devil emperor. In the study, Jun Changshao returned. The 7 incomplete scrolls were still stacked on the table. They were not as colorful as before. Is it really that simple to enter the land of eternal life? Gousheng sat down, touched the scroll, and said to himself, maybe it was deliberately left behind. Jun Changshao narrowed his eyes. He found that although the first scroll had returned to its normal state, there were faint patterns on the cover. The second scroll, the third scroll, all of them. Whoosh! Jun Changshao stood up and spread out the 7 scrolls. After careful observation and arrangement, he exclaimed, Maps? Chapter 1976. There was nothing on the cover of the 7 books at first, but now there were strange patterns. When Jun Changshao arranged them casually, they actually formed a map. No. To be precise, it was a star field map. Judging from the general structure, there were many galaxies and planes inside. Over the years, Jun Changshao had driven Eternal to many places, but he had no impression of this place. Normal. The system said, the host's understanding of the upper universe is only the tip of the iceberg. Why is there a star field map? Jun Changshao's intuition told him that the patterns in the books were not random scribbles. It was very likely that he had left behind treasures. Fine. The system was speechless. If you really think about your previous life, you would be the 7 profound sage. Find it. Jun Changshao immediately took out a pen and ink and copied the patterns from the 7 books. Then he went to the array hall and handed it to Shengwan Xinyao. Patriarch. She asked, what is this? Star field map. Jun Changshao urged, find it as soon as possible. Oh. Shengwan Xinyao picked up the pattern and carefully observed and thought. She shook her head and said, the explored areas in our star field map don't have these places. What was the strongest brain? The places he had been to and the places on the map were all in his mind. There was no need to compare them individually with the map. Then find it, Jun Changshao said. The Taishian elder who was drinking tea at the side spat out and said, the upper universe is so big. It's not easy to find it. That's your problem. Jun Changshao said, it's not my problem. The Taishian elder was speechless. Our array hall is only responsible for researching arrays. Shouldn't the drizzle hall be responsible for finding planes and certain things? Makes sense. Jun Changshao said, then let them find it. Just like that, the work that was originally arranged for the array hall was all transferred to the drizzle hall. After Li Luoqiu found out, although she felt a headache, she still organized people to find the places marked on the map. Whoosh! Swish! On that day, countless battleships took off from the eternal world and flew into the starry sky. Li Luoqiu had mobilized nearly 1,000 members this time. They were going to explore the universe that had never been explored before. After leaving the upper realm, Jun Changshao was, at most, on an interstellar journey. He was flying aimlessly, stopping wherever he went and leaving everything up to fate. Now, with the eternal world as the foundation, he ordered his disciples to explore the unknown areas, which was equivalent to taking the initiative to explore the entire upper universe. As the saying goes, when Gousheng went to war, not even a blade of grass grew. Hopefully, some of the rich planes would not be discovered by the members of the Drizzle Hall, and would not be marked on the central star map array of the sect of all times. What was the central star map array formation? It was a special formation created by the old man from Taishan. It was special because it didn't have any offensive or defensive functions. Its only function was to record the positions and coordinates of the major star fields and the major planes. To put it bluntly, it was more like a professional map. It was a complete record of every star field and plane in the upper universe. Of course, there were still many star fields that had not been explored, so when the coordinates were obtained, they would be accurately loaded. The old man from Taishan wanted to draw the most complete picture of the universe in history. The Drizzle Hall sent members to explore, and they could get many places that had not been explored before, so they could constantly enrich and perfect the central star map array formation. It looked boring. But one day, all the star fields and planes in the upper universe would appear on it. That would be a magnificent feat that would be recorded in history. Patriarch. The next day, Li Luoqiu hurriedly walked into the main hall and said with a serious expression, "The spiritual might world has disappeared." Disappeared? Jun Changshao said, "Has it been destroyed?" Li Luoqiu explained, "According to the news sent, the spiritual might world has evaporated like air in its star field." Jun Changshao frowned. In the afternoon, Li Luoqiu came to report again, "Patriarch, the spirit radiance world has also disappeared." Swoosh! Jun Changshao hurried to the central star map array formation of the array formation hall. Soon, he discovered that the spiritual might world and the spirit radiance world were not only in the same star field, but they were also very close to each other. In just a few hours, two had disappeared in a row. It was very abnormal. There were more than two. When night came, another one had disappeared. My hall members went to explore the star field given by the Patriarch. They happened to pass by this star field and didn't find anything unusual, Li Luoqiu said. Jun Changshao sat at the head of the table, his fingers intertwined. After a moment of silence, he thought to himself, "Is it the heavenly devil emperor?" Thinking of the heaven-devouring evil lord devouring planes, he could not help but wonder if the other party had comprehended that evil technique and started to walk the same path as the former. If it's the heavenly devil emperor, the system said, that's troublesome. My head hurts. Jun Changshao leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples as a rare sense of powerlessness appeared in his eyes. For the time being, he would not be able to defeat the celestial demonic emperor if he did not cheat. Chapter 1977. Legendary Mission. After hearing the prompt, Jun Changshao froze in place. Over the years, he had taken on main missions, side missions, hidden missions, and epic missions, but he had never received such a mission. Sigh. The system sighed, "Stop hiding, let's lay our cards on the table." In fact, there has always been a legendary mission, but because it is too difficult and the requirements are very harsh, the host has never triggered it. Hitue. Jun Changshao said, "Either it is a temporary setting, or you don't know." Bullshit. The system said, "How can I not know?" You are a tool for complaining, Jun Changshao said straightforwardly. Don't say it. From the previous situation, Gosheng was right. A system that could always speak human language was not a real system. At best, it was a salesman and chat tool. The tool trembled with anger. Jun Changshao was too lazy to argue with it and hurriedly opened the mission panel. The introduction panel of the legendary mission was very luxurious, directly beating the panels of the main mission, side mission, and epic mission. I feel it. Jun Changshao closed his eyes and felt with his heart, the power of Krypton is calling me. There were many words written on the legendary mission, at least a large chapter. In order to avoid the word count, in summary, it must be completed with the participation of the Patriarch and the whole sect. Jun Changshao said, the whole sect needs to participate, worthy of a legendary mission. The mission also explained in detail that if completed successfully, all participants would receive a reward. As for what the reward was, it varied from person to person. Then, what mission? To put it simply, it was to gather the strength of the sect and obtain the treasure hidden in the despair abyss. It was very straightforward, very clear. Sure enough. Jun Changxiao's eyes were burning. There is a treasure hidden here. Schwa! He took out the star area map, determined the area, and said with a serious expression, "Follow me, don't separate." Yes. Everyone responded. There were not many seniors and disciples who entered this time, but they were all elites of the sect, such as Gu Zhaoxi, Black and White Rakshasa, Lu Qianqian, Li Qingyang, and others. As for the other disciples, they were in the eternal world. This time, Jun Changxiao had already activated the sand transformation. Therefore, the power of the entire sect could be brought out at any time. Jian Guishu and Gu Tianqing also followed in. Seniors. Jun Changxiao urged as he walked, no matter what happens later, don't do anything. Let us handle it. The two of them were not members of the sect of all times, but they were allies. He did not want to chase them away, and he was also afraid that it would affect his completion rate. Thus, he could only allow them to follow, but not participate directly. All right. Jian Guishu and Gu Tianqing agreed. Abyss of Despair. In the upper universe forbidden area. Its location was very remote, and because of the invisible barrier, it seemed to have been deliberately separated. Normal martial artists would not dare to come here because they would feel despair the moment they entered. If it wasn't for the map marking this place, Jun Changxiao definitely wouldn't have come here for the thrill. Moreover, after walking for a long time, he still didn't see any resources. The despair abyss once hid endless resources. On the way, Jian Guishu said, later, because of excessive mining, it was emptied tens of thousands of years ago and became a ruin that no one cared about. What a pity. Jun Changxiao said, we're late. Why didn't he guess that the treasure would be dug up by someone else first? The reason was simple. If the treasure was gone, bringing in disciples would not trigger the legendary mission. Damn. The system complained, is this a spoiler? As for saying that they were late, the meaning was simple. If they came tens of thousands of years earlier, not only could they obtain the treasure, but they could also obtain a large amount of resources in the despair abyss. It was killing two birds with one stone. Whoosh whoosh. The cold wind blew. It was extremely desolate. The despair abyss was a relatively independent star region. Not only were there meteorites and galaxies, but there were also scattered plains. Unfortunately, they were all dried up. There were no resources or origins, so the disciples of the sect of all times had no idea where to start. Second senior brother. In a plain filled with yellow sand, Su Xiama asked in a low voice, will there be treasures in this godforsaken place? Don't ask. Li Qingyang answered. Oh. Su Xiama shut his mouth. Jun Changxiao sat in an open space. He took out the map engraved from the remnant scroll and studied it carefully. The marked area had been found. Were there any secrets? Patriarch. Shengguan Xiniao pointed at a place on the map and said, the arrangement of these plains, don't they look like some kind of demonic beast? Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up and said, yes, they do. Jian Guishu said, the star region map may contain some kind of astronomical phenomenon. Jun Patriarch, you'd better find someone who knows feng shui to interpret it. No feng shui. Jun Changxiao immediately thought of his father, so he asked him to come out of the eternal world. That's right. Zhang San, who was proficient in divination, carefully examined the star region map. He pointed at the area mentioned by Shengguan Xiniao and said, from the arrangement of the plains, it should be Evil Return. Evil Return. It's an ancient demonic beast with a dragon head, a horse's body, and scales feet. It's shaped like a lion. From his father's description, Jun Changxiao thought of the Pishio. Then he carefully observed the arrangement of the plains. It was indeed a little similar. Evil return means auspicious. Zhang San said, from the perspective of feng shui, there should be opportunities hidden in this area. Let's go. Jun Changshao got up and said, let's find it. Zhang San said with a serious expression, although it's an auspicious place, it's surrounded by dangerous places. I'm afraid it's not easy to get in. Wealth comes from danger. Since he was here, Jun Changshao had no reason to shrink back. Moreover, there was a legendary task. He had to complete it and get the treasure. Dogs Leftover even began to look forward to this kind of mission that seemed to be above the epic and main storyline levels. What kind of generous rewards would he get after completing it? Would he directly break through to the top of the Divine Vision realm and kill the Celestial Demonic Emperor? There was a more important point. After the task was completed, he would not be the only one who would benefit. If his thoughts were even more daring, would the entire sect break through to the Divine Vision realm and enter the land of eternal life? The system said, if it's as the host thinks, then it's the end. Everyone followed the terrain and headed towards the auspicious place. Zhang San had been studying the map the whole time. After walking for about an hour, he hurriedly stopped and said, if I'm not wrong, the starry sky ahead is the first place of great danger. Buzz! Buzz! At this moment, the space in front of them trembled and gradually tore open a space crack. Woo woo woo! Ayo ayo ayo! Ghostly wails and howls came from the crack, and then they saw ghost-like creatures rushing out. Their eyes flickered with blue light, and their hands gathered blue energy, looking exceptionally ferocious. If you want to get the treasure, you have to get through this first. A huge blue ghost body slowly appeared, as if it was the leader of the ghost group. Oh! Jun Changshao lowered his head, rubbed out a flame, lit the cigar in his mouth, then raised his head and blew out a smoke ring, saying, as you wish. Swish! Swish! Gu Zhaoxi and the other upper echelons, as well as Li Qingyang and the other core disciples, flew forward from behind him. All kinds of martial arts and special effects erupted, killing towards the group of ghosts that was like a wave. At this point, the Battle of the Abyss dungeon began. If you want to know what will happen, listen to the next chapter. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.